And we're live.
We're like starting the conversation. We're like, no, wait, we have to get live first.
We're live.
And then we can make it
Hello,
happen.
all welcome.
Hello.
We can't do it anymore. You've got to stop.
Well,
I want to put like a shock collar on you.
I can't do that. I can't.
Hello, all welcome. It is Thursday night, Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we are back in black.
We're back in black.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting once I am officially up in the Panhandle, which will be in less than 2 weeks.
I know you're going to have to just cope with us just wearing whatever we're wearing.
I'm just going to say, it's like we're not going to really have this conversation of like what the attire is going to look like.
I'm fine with it. You're the one who, because you've been sitting next to me for 4 years, I have been sort of like,
although I will say that
beaten down and pressured, and I mean that figuratively, not literally.
I've had to hit you a couple times, but that's
into wearing the shirt, even though I've said I just want to wear whatever I'm wearing. And you've always been kind of like, he's been kind of like militant about it.
Don't
and a little bit. And
then,
we have to exactly be alternating. And if I do twice, like just, yeah, I'm not going to miss that. I'm not going to miss that.
Well, we will continue to have some thought-provoking conversations. That's not going to change.
We just won't be matching.
And to the two guests that we have this evening, who we've actually brought together. You know, we have a habit of bringing people together that would otherwise not have connected, or maybe they would have, but I think we played a role, you know, small role as that may be. But for those of you know,
matchmaker.
It was a Shonda, wasn't it?
It was a Shonda.
Totally. So as you know, we think very highly of people who are principled in politics. There's not a lot of them.
Just consistent and principled. Just consistent and principled.
And so the new chair, I shouldn't even say
she can't be that new.
But recent. We'll say recent.
Okay.
In terms of recent history.
Okay.
But the chair of the Libertarian Party is the only other chair of note outside of the two major parties in this country. In fact, can you name the chair? I mean, we know who the chair of the Democratic Party is because they're doing the whole fiasco mea culpa right now. I don't remember who the chair of the GOP is right now, but I know who the chair of the Libertarian Party is.
Yeah.
That's got to count for something. Right?
I have no idea.
Well, she is definitely a trailblazer, and she's trying to teach many of us political outsiders how to exert power in a way that seldom is seen outside of the two-party system. So
strategically,
let's see if we can make it even stronger as we go forward. This is the third time that she is a guest on our show. Angela McArdle, welcome back to Generational Change.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
No, it's always good to talk to you.
But for the first time, and you will not be alone, you are going to be joined by a friend of ours who is actually a fellow South Floridian and a true patriot, as I like to say. Somebody who actually has served our country and stands on principle of the bullshit that is endless war in the United States. Brian Lupo, CannCon, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be back with you guys.
Yeah, no, I've always been very pleased that even though I am definitely a leftist person, that we always have this sort of cross appeal amongst the reasonable, you know, like just amongst people that just are wanting to be reasonable, have normal discussions, and just the anti-corruption and the anti-duopoly of it all. There's so much common ground, even when we don't agree on individual policy. I feel like the major thing that we have to deal with is the fundamental corruption of the corrosion. And then once we deal with that, then we can sort of have like discussions based on, you know, now what do we do?
Totally.
Yeah,
agree.
absolutely. I think you guys are, I would call you guys more populist left rather than, you know, necessarily leftist. And I do think that there's a kind of a middle ground between the populist right and the populist left. And, you know, it's like the horseshoe theory where eventually it comes around where each end of the horseshoe is actually closer to the ends than they are to the middle. And I think that's where we are kind of at after we've had some conversations on air and off air.
That's so cool that you said that. And I feel like that's something I should know and have heard of, the horseshoe theory. But for the longest time since we've been doing this show, I've been saying as I get older, I'm further and further and further to the left, and I'm going to fall off. And the thing is that I do find myself often aligned with people like Rand Paul, right? Yeah. Like, so I've noticed that. So you're right. It's not necessarily a circle, but it's definitely a horseshoe. That's really cool. I probably should have known that.
I think of it as like a Venn diagram, and we have like a lot more overlapping spots than we realized, and then the first step of that is kind of what you guys do is facilitating communication and talking to people like they're human beings, which is difficult to do on the internet, because on the internet, you're a line of text. You're not a human being. So it's like, bringing people together face to face is a total game changer.
Well, it definitely is. And that's why so many people, especially in liberal politics, want to basically stay in their bubbles and their boxes, if you will. That's why, as you guys have seen since the election, and it's really ramped up this week in particular, this whole exodus over to blue sky, another, can't get over there soon enough. What do you attribute that to? We've seen the stories about the really wealthy liberals, moving to Europe and Canada.
Oh, definitely. Bon voyage.
Yeah.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah, I know, really. You almost feel like people
Don't let
like
the door
her.
hit ya.
You almost feel like people like her are getting out of town because there may be a little.
Maybe there's another reason
that they really don't want having coming.
Isn't it wild how she can go to a sports game with the Bushes? But
yeah, it was great. Yeah, I had a great time with her.
Donald Trump gets reelected, and we got to take off. I'm like,
do you guys remember when Anne Heche was in the car accident?
Yes.
Do you remember when she got up from the medical gurney?
Yes, like her body jerked up.
No, she sat up.
Yeah.
Like she sits up clear as day. Like, what are you guys doing to me? And they pushed her back down and zipped her up and stuffed her in the ambulance.
Mm.
It's on video, and this was caught from the
Sky Chopper. Was she having like a psychotic break or something like that?
No, they told us she was dead. She was in like a body bag, like zipped up over her head, and she ripped it open and stood up. And this was caught on the local news, like live.
And this was an accident before she actually did die in a car accident. This was a different accident.
No, it's the same one.
This was the accident that they said she died in.
Yeah, same accident, but she didn't actually die until later.
She then died from later sustained injuries.
Perhaps.
Or suddenly, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
That's interesting.
You don't typically put people in a body bag and zip it all the way up over their head when they're trauma patients that need critical care. That's all I'm saying. It was shocking to me when I saw it.
That's weird.
No, there's a lot of questions that we never have answered, and that's why people have to ultimately form their own conclusions as to why things are so erratic. And one of the things that we want to point out, and I would imagine you guys would agree, most of the complaints about Matt Gaetz in particular has to do with his character. And I'm not saying he's, anybody to write home about, but what's more concerning to me, and this has more to do with the way things are on Capitol Hill. If you were to ask just about anybody, do you think that there are things that Trump has done over the course of his, let's say, first term as president that are obscene, perhaps not law-abiding? I've always referenced the emoluments clause, particularly with the Saudis. But anything that he has done that one would consider to be actual criminal behavior are things that pretty much everybody on Capitol Hill is getting away with. Right. And so they want to point the finger at him, much like they want to point the finger at Gaetz, and they want to reference the case of whether or not he crossed state lines with a girl who was underage. Here's the information that I think is more important, and perhaps the reason why he is not going to be confirmed, is not even going to have a hearing. He basically went to the Hill today. He met with as many senators as he could. And it seems to be pretty clear that he wouldn't even have a shot at being confirmed.
I could have guessed that, though.
So this is the information that was presented as to why Matt Gaetz was probably removed. He is one of the very few Republicans who has not taken any money from AIPAC. So to me, that stands out. He has called the ADL racist. He has claimed Israeli Mossad is behind the Epstein client list. That has been rumored for a very long time. And he voted against the anti-Semitism awareness bill, which AOC voted in favor of.
Ugh, it's disgusting.
So when I see things like this, I'm thinking, if this is not getting talked about, then this is probably the reason, above all others, why they can't have somebody like this. And notably so, Pam Bondi has a very, very pleasant attitude towards Israel in general. And so I don't want to put it all on them, but I would love to hear your guys' thoughts as to why you think Gaetz was not even given the opportunity for confirmation. Is he simply...
He was the only one then that isn't a Zionist tool out of all the other appointments.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know all the details with the girl. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a honeypot, if it was someone that he thought and had been told explicitly was over the age of 18.
I think she had an ID that was that had her being 18. I heard that. I don't know,
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
I think that when you get into when you become an elected official, you're going to have all kinds of these people swarm you to try to get dirt on you. And you got to be really careful. And you think you do your due diligence and then you don't, And so it's just like, it's a difficult situation. I definitely think the fact that he has no AIPAC handlers is probably part of it. Yeah, I was very skeptical of him getting Senate confirmation when I heard. I was like, oh, this is amazing. We're going to go after Fauci and we're going to do all the crazy stuff, and then, but at least he got the honorable mention. I hope they put him in as like deputy assistant, and that he could still just kind of get unleashed on these people.
We have a theory. Would you like to share your theory about where Gaetz is going and how it's connected?
Well, I think that there's only two possibilities for Gaetz. I think actually there's three. There's now three possibilities.
Okay.
So technically, because he did win his election, he is eligible by January 3rd to report back to Congress. So he could do that. The second, of course, is he could be appointed by Governor DeSantis and replace Rubio in the Senate, which to me would probably be the best case scenario. And then the final is the biggest risk of them all, which is to run for governor in 2026. But I think it will be one of those three.
I think he'll replace Rubio.
I would love that. I also heard, that they were going to run Laura Trump, and that was one of the reasons Rubio got picked up. So
I'm not a fan of I'm not a
Jen's face.
Oh my God.
Jen.
I like Laura Trump where she is right now as co-chair of the RNC. Personally, I am a Republican because Florida, we have to be primaries, but
you'd be no party if you could be no party.
100%.
I have no unkind words, but
So as far as what happened with Matt Gaetz, so I've done a lot of reporting and stuff on this over the last couple days, especially. But every single thing coming out about Matt Gaetz right now has been known for 3 years.
Yes.
There's nothing new in any of these reports, and the fact that it's being rerun as if this is something new, when in fact right now we have something that we didn't have 3 years ago, and that is the DOJ has not exonerated him, but they've refused to bring charges.
Yep.
Now Joel Greenberg, obviously his accomplice in all of this, he's upstate now doing 11 years for all this, and so one of two things happen here, in my opinion. One is the AIPAC money is a great point. He's not funded. He's a very he's a small dollar individual. He doesn't take huge corporate payments and all the stuff like that. So he's not desirable. He is a firebrand that was going to go into the DOJ. If you've ever watched him on the HBO documentary, The Swamp, excuse me, that basically follows him around. And I'm not going to lie, I don't typically really root for politicians. I root for Matt Gaetz. And so I was really... What's that?
For sure. He's
so I was upset when this happened. Now there's another thing that, and this is kind of game theory, and this is a little out there, so I don't know if your audience is ready for this yet, but when Ron DeSantis ran for president in 2024 in the primaries, I thought it was the most boneheaded thing DeSantis could ever do, because all you had to do was sit back, finish your term as governor in 2026, and then just kind of post your way into the primary. You would have been the front runner by a landslide, and you would have, kind of slid your way into the Republican nomination for 2028. But he didn't do that. And instead he came out, and what you had was a bunch of the establishment neocon rhinos flocked to him and, Ron DeSantis. And of course that campaign went absolutely nowhere. And so he goes back to the governorship. He never resigned. They passed the law right before he ran so that he didn't have to resign. And then he goes right back to the governorship. Matt Gaetz might have done the same thing. They knew that Matt Gaetz was going to be very difficult to get across, and there were still constitutional means by which he could have done it. The adjournment clause, recess appointments. There's a lot of different things that Trump could have done to get Matt Gaetz in that position. But Matt Gaetz had a whole bunch of Republican senators come out and say, I will not vote to confirm him. We want to see the ethics report and all this stuff. And so they exposed more of the swamp. And so if Donald Trump is actually playing 4D or 5D chess here, he just got a huge advantage on his opponents in this by having them expose themselves and go against what he wanted for his next administration. So that's just my theory. It could be a little too deep, but I don't know.
I think we have a pretty good idea of who the, wishy-washy people are, also just based on what happened with the Senate Majority Leader situation. The guys who are or lean neocon are still the majority in the Senate. It sucks. It's just like the reality. So there's going to have to be a lot of wheeling and dealing in order to get the America first as opposed to Israel first agenda through.
I don't know how that's going to happen, but I am thankful that it wasn't Rick Scott in the Senate. Okay. So, that was something that we had thought was going to happen. And I found very concerning. Like I honestly, like the whole country should be concerned about that man.
Florida man.
Oh, it's a shit
We earn
show
our
of shit shows, man.
we earn our
It's
reputation.
crazy.
Brian knows we earn our reputation. We definitely, are what we are. I mean, it's, we produce. I mean, come on, we have to deal with Debbie Wasserman Schultz on MSNBC and CNN every day now.
It's brutal.
If you want to see how bad the Democrats are doing, this is the person that they think should be going on national TV every day talking about the ethics of Tulsi Gabbard. That makes a lot of sense.
She's not the Florida man. She's like the alligator.
The swamp creature.
It's just so
Swamp
funny.
creature, I think, is the more appropriate term.
It's
Snapping
really
like
turtle, watching
fish.
her talking about ethics. It really is, and she's just such a satire now. She really does look like she's ridiculously creepy. Like she really looks like reptilian. It's almost like the Saturday Night Live skit with her, because you have somebody that has gotten away with the most unethical, illegal crap in public view.
Because me, it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. Like the creepier your behavior is, the creepier you begin to look. It's like
You
people
become
that look
what you are on the inside, on the outside.
But what I don't
ramen noodle head. Her hair looks like ramen noodles.
The reptile class.
She's a very easy target, but she makes herself a very
Terrible.
easy target because she constantly
She just voted for the shit.
Yes.
She just was one of 15
So she
or
was
so.
one of the 15 Dems that voted in favor of basically having the Treasury Department remove not-for-profits at will today. And
9495.
everybody wants to point the finger at Trump that
Not
he's going to do
good.
this and he's going to do that. And all I'm thinking is, no, this is the direct result of the corporate special interest takeover of our government. This is where progressives and libertarians are actually aligned.
Yep.
And this is a much more bigger issue as it relates to the Israel lobby.
This is a civil liberties issue.
It is.
Okay. This is a major civil liberties issue. The fact that to me, that is extremely fascistic to be, dictating what content, what ideologies get nonprofit status. Because if we're going there, then we need to get the churches and all of them out of there too.
Here's one more point about Matt Gaetz that I think we should all be made aware of that's very important here. Does everybody know who this lady is?
The people who have been the watchdog in the government for mergers and competition is Lina Khan. She works for the president at the FTC, and obviously she will be out of a job soon. But she's still watchdogging right now, and that's caught the attention of Republicans who have written her a letter telling her to wind it down.
Matt Gaetz supports Lina Khan. Maybe that's another reason why he can't be confirmed as the Attorney General.
Oh, interesting. I see.
Just a thought.
Well, she's good.
She's great.
So one of the arguments that the Democrats brought up, and senators, Republican, all of them, is before he's confirmed, they want to see this ethics report, the ethics investigation report. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. However, there's a stipulation. I want to see all the ethics reports.
Yeah, I was going to say,
like,
he also is notorious for going after the ethics committee for insider trading. I'm sure that the ethics committee hates his guts. He'll be like, oh, look at the trades that this person made. Look at the trades that person made. Look at how much money they made.
No wonder Wasserman Schultz has a lot of things to say about Matt Gaetz. That would certainly explain a lot.
Yeah.
Or people like Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, yeah. Did you
He
know
turned the
Pelosi?
speaker confirmation into a quote unquote circus because, you know, God forbid we hold accountability on passing continuing resolutions for the last 25 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
Kicking the can down the road, and then he essentially ousted Kevin McCarthy. So there is no good blood with the establishment neocons and establishment Democrats on either side for Matt Gaetz, and that is why we loved him so much. And you know,
that's why he wouldn't have been confirmed. And there's just a lot of people there. He's made a lot of enemies. For various reasons, a lot of which might be noble, but he's made a lot of enemies there, and that's just the way it is.
But at least he has the courage to do that. And unlike on the Democratic side, AOC has proven time and again that she's just a fraud. Like, I hate having to use that term, but it's so obvious at this point. And the reason I use the word fraud is because,
AOC Pelosi.
Yeah, here's a person who goes on social media and wants to laud Bernie Sanders for saying the things that he had to say regarding trying to fight off the arms embargo.
You said Bernie. Okay.
But unfortunately, on the other hand, you've got AOC literally voting in favor of the anti-Semitism bullshit censorship bill. And all I'm thinking is, like, how two-faced can you possibly be? And here's somebody who has serious political aspirations. And now that the Democratic Party is as decimated as the Republican Party was back in the 70s after Watergate, it's almost like people are looking for their opportunity now to seize power. And there's no question that she's looking at her opportunity to do the same thing. But integrity and honesty be damned, as far as I can see.
Well, see, she's central casting 101.
Yes.
So I'll never forget the audition video of her as long as I live, and that will live in infamy forever and ever.
Well, do they not realize?
She was recruited.
She
auditioned. She wasn't recruited. She auditioned.
Well, I meant that they had put out like a request for submission.
Well,
that's what I mean. They were looking to the Justice Democrats were looking.
Well, no, it was brand new Congress.
No,
they do it like at least they did it out in the open. I mean, don't you always wonder how many politicians? Some of them. I'm not going to name all the names because I'm waiting on my own, like cabinet pick things to happen. But some of these people are dumb as rocks, like shockingly, like you're like, how, I don't know how you got elected to office. I don't know how you operate a motor vehicle.
Well, they have funding for whatever reason, infrastructure. So let's talk about who are the cabinet picks as somebody like that is a libertarian, and like, what are you looking at? I mean, obviously RFK. Is a big one, but
member. He is a member of the Libertarian Party. People scream, they're like, that doesn't count. I'm like, well, would Thomas Massey count? Because he's clearly Libertarian. And then they're like, that doesn't count.
Talking about him as an appointee.
Agriculture, let's go, baby.
Ag.
Yeah,
I would love it. I mean, he'll.
Have they? But has he been appointed? Has he been appointed yet?
Personally, I would much rather see. Personally much rather see Massey replace McConnell in the Senate. That's my opinion, but in due time. But maybe that is what he ends up doing. I mean I think he's as good a representative as we have.
It's tricky. It's crazy to think about a Republican going after agriculture subsidies. Like that is.
We've talked at length about how much the two parties have shifted in a number of ways. It's not obviously completely shifted because obviously we see that. Thune is obviously the Senate Majority Leader. They did a silent vote. You couldn't actually see how they voted, which I think says a lot about the ones that they want to protect. Listen, I like the fact that there is this fighting spirit on the populist right, that they're basically saying, we're going to come for you with everything we got if you don't start listening to what we say. Thomas Jefferson said it best. When people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. I cannot emphasize that is one of the greatest quotes in the history of our country. And it's so much more relevant now than it's ever been. When we get
no one's ever going to fear the Democrats. I assure you.
No, I don't think that's ever.
They can't even change their own tires.
But that's the thing. Remember, the difference between Wright's Priebus and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is that Rights Priebus allowed the democratic process to take place in the Republican national in the primary in 2016. Debbie Wasserman Schultz did not allow that. She was on the dole for the Clintons and did as was
Still
told,
is.
and probably still is. And you look at that and you think, well, how could you ever expect anything to change in a significant way, even if we have these principles and these things that we want to fight for? It is fair to say that trying to push it through the Democratic Party, it's a fool's errand at this point if you think you're going to continue doing it that way.
Yeah.
Very true. Very true. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen in 28. Like, who's going to run? Kennedy, like, broke the seal. So what's coming
We
next?
already know. I mean, we discussed this last on Monday, or was it Thursday, with John Nichols of The Nation. He's a really solid liberal. He's from Wisconsin. He writes for The Nation. He's not that overwoke type that you guys obviously would not want to deal with. Even though some of his colleagues
working left populist, union labor based type people.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is like the whole thing about Sean O'Brien speaking at the RNC. If the Democratic Party was the party of the upper Midwest, then I think a lot of people
it is
would be
different
fine
there
with the Democratic Party.
Right.
You know?
Not the coastal elite thing. That it is a big difference. And how they run their parties is different too in those places.
I mean, if Tim Walz wasn't so in over his head like Kamala was, again, they were two peas in a pod in that regard. It speaks to some of the populist things that he did in the state that were really good, whether it was from a libertarian standpoint. He was one of the first governors that went full legalization on cannabis. That's why the body was there to approve it and sign it into law.
Yeah.
You know, it's those.
He had some good takes.
That matters. But the Democratic Party of today is the party of San Francisco, New York City, and Washington, D.C. And that is not the Democratic Party that anyone would want to be a part of if they care about working class issues.
Right.
And as they're sitting here now, they're in a rebranding phase, and you're seeing this all over the place. You know, whether it's Cenk Uyghur fighting with Alan Lichtman on Piers Morgan's show, or whether it's Abby Phillips going out there and saying, you know, Democrats are too concerned to the bubble of the elites and we got to get out of this elitism bubble. They're realizing now that they have to rebrand. You know, after the DNC fired off so many employees with no notice whatsoever and just left them high and dry, the unions are pushing back. The Teamsters in 2024 went overwhelmingly for Trump. That's huge.
They refused to
They
do
really
an endorsement.
did. They were great people, incredible people.
And to what Angela was saying, that's the most disgusting part, is the leadership still would not endorse Donald Trump, even though he was like 65-35 in two polls among the Teamsters. I watched not Sean O'Brien. What's the guy from the
Sean
UW?
Fain.
Sean Fain. I watched him on, I think it was Neil Cavuto, literally sit there and say an overwhelming majority of my members will not vote for Joe Biden. And then, like, the very next breath, he's like, the UAW endorses Joe Biden. And it's like, what are these people doing? What are these union members doing?
That was disappointing.
Yeah,
that was disappointing.
I'm willing to give Sean Fain a pass because he was the one union leader who actually got something substantial for workers done during the Biden administration. For the most part, the Biden administration.
I also think he's playing a longer game.
He is playing a longer
game. You know,
the
unions apparently, I mean, one of the things they've been doing is coordinating their contract dates so that you have it was like Sarah Nelson, Sean Fain, like both Seans, like it was like all of them having it so their contracts were up at the same time, which is the thing that could lead to the potential of a general strike, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
So I do think that Sean Fain, even though that was disappointing, is somebody that is a very net positive for being a liaison between people in certain areas and labor, even though that wasn't an ideal endorsement.
And when we look back on the Biden administration, I mean, for me, forget Ukraine and Gaza. He was a failure as a president. First, he was a failure with his first 100 days when he said the parliamentarian won't allow me to do something. But then...
I've been there, man. I've been there. It's tough.
For everybody who has a soft spot for Reagan, never forget that neoliberalism really started in the summer of 1981 when he fired the air traffic control workers. And there had not been a strike. There hasn't been a busted strike in the United States since then until Joe Biden did it to the railroad workers. And that goes doubly bad for what ended up happening in East Palestine. And shout out to our friend Jordan Chariton at Status Quo News, who was one of the first to really cover that story. Remember, it was convenient to talk about it on corporate media when it was Flint because that's a blue city, but East Palestine's a very red area. And, we like to forget that they're human beings too.
Or
and
we say things like, see, that's
yeah.
what happens when you vote for Republicans.
Oh my God. How about the liberals out there talking about how, oh, well, now I really hope they bomb the shit out of Gaza. It's
I can't.
Oh my God.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
By the way, Jen, could you just fill in people who think they know you, but apparently they don't know you too well?
Who are you talking about?
I don't know what channel you're on, but you're on the wrong one.
I have 4 years of content. Never. I am anti-bans and mandates across the board. Always have been. What are you talking about?
Well, just in case that person's
I was
a
pro
troll.
lockdown. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's we're libertarian.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't feed the trolls.
That's so fun.
But
it's
keep
so
commenting because it's good for the lob.
rebuttable. Like that's just so stupid when you can seriously go back to that time and never would. Yeah, that's weird. Anyway.
Oh, a former supporter. Okay. Well,
there you go. Someone's really mad.
But thanks for showing up anyway.
All right.
One clip that I do want to play that I think you guys will enjoy. A lot of times some of these liberals really do show their stripes. And one thing I've always experienced, especially growing up in New Jersey, is you get a sense of what's really important to them. Credentials is very important to liberals. Like that is what they live for. They live to talk about, I went to this school or I got this thing. And so we all know about Alan Lichtman and how he was this keys guru about election prediction. And he had been right all these years and wasn't right in, I think, 2016, but Hillary won the popular vote. And this time he was completely wrong.
Because this was a replay of 2016, so
Yes.
it's Groundhog Day. So yes, you'll play the same game, get the same prize.
We'll give Cenk credit where credit's due. He did put this guy in his place, but you could see that it really it irked the shit out of him when Cenk pushed his buttons the right way. And this is, I think, reflective of a lot of these types of liberals and how they think.
Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but one, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. And look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
Couldn't
not
find
right,
him
and
before
I
the
was
election.
not wrong, and that's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be
Who
taking
won?
cheap
Who
shots
won?
at me.
Who
you
won?
want to make your
You
point,
live
make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make it
world of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers' comments, and they all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me.
Yeah,
so quiet with your personal attacks.
come find out again.
Make whatever point you want. Don't make it personal.
You don't know anything. You don't know anything.
You attacked me personally.
You're so deluded.
Oh, right. I've only been a professor for 51 years.
On this program, I've never been able to finish a thought.
How many books have you published?
Okay,
it's true.
So that's
true.
How many books have you published?
Wait, you missed the best part.
All right, wait.
But remember, 51 years as a professor and 13 books.
I'm concerned for the students that he's had in his class.
Yeah, that
We've institutionalized failure in this country.
Oh,
Yes.
completely.
Yes.
But he's
The Democratic Party loves to reward
hey,
failure.
at least Cenk didn't go after his wig. I mean, he could have done that too.
He should. I hope that Cenk runs for president again and makes it into the primary debates. It would be a bloodbath.
It would be.
Just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll finish it up.
No, because you're personally attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for
brother,
personal
you got it wrong.
Say
you were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just
Don't
finish
call
a
me
goddamn thought
stupid.
ever on this show?
No, not if you're
Okay,
personally.
well,
I
you proved
admitted
it.
I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say,
What
it's
kind
great
of
to see
nonsense
you
is that?
Democrats
Yeah, I
all
know.
getting
Who
along
taught
so
you
well.
manners?
It's lovely to
You're
see
the
you
one.
Can I
post-election
finish a
harmony as you all
goddamn
come
point?
together
We're
again.
just one
Alan,
right now.
This reminds me of the old
Hey,
crossroads.
Alan, you deserve a tall glass of shut-up juice, so can you just shut up for a second and let someone who knows what
Not
they're doing
if you're
so
gonna
right,
personally
Pierce.
attack
You're
me.
so right.
So-
We're so
Make any
unified right
point
now.
you
Okay.
want.
So-
I will not sit here and stand
So-
for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't boost your
Blasphemy
ego
against you?
by
What the hell are
attacking
you?
me
Are you
like that.
Jesus
Just
Christ,
make
you
your point.
loser?
Blasphemy.
Can I just give the correct answer for once?
Who's the kid? Who's
That's
the kid
how-
with the? Who's
Harry.
Harry?
Harry Sisson,
Oh.
The biggest.
Okay, I don't know any. I don't want. Yeah.
Oh, you don't
Brian-
watch.
Brian,
You're not
would you
watching the Biden TikTok.
Harry
Bri-
Sisson is someone you do not like. I thought.
Brian, Brian, would you like to take this one? Would you like to rant on Harry Sisson for a minute?
Harry Sisson is the epitome of a beta male bitch, and I'm sorry, I got nothing else to say.
That's okay. There's a
Oh,
lot of
I
depth in that
have.
woman.
There's just so much more to say about.
Okay, please do.
I mean, he's a fascinating creature. He is a paid influencer for Biden and the White House regime. And I just think it's really fascinating how incredibly tapped in they are to youth outreach and how they also fell flat on their face. There's just so much to unpack with Harry Sisson. It's weird. It's creepy to watch. But if you get a little too like, stupid young person, like you start to sound like an old man, like get off my lawn. Like I've watched Harry Sisson and like the TikTok army like very closely because they are lockstep in for Biden and then for Kamala. Like no joke, like they are clearly like paid to support him, and everybody should have that. I mean, that's impressive.
The other thing about
Gen Z is pushing back against that. Gen Z doesn't want anything. Gen Z is more rebellious than any generation I think that has preceded them.
Which is why that's interesting. So here's what I have. This is what I've come to the conclusion of, and I've seen it locally. So I'm just going to kind of presume that it exists on the national level too. Since young people are not going to join the Democratic Party on their own free will, they're not. The majority of young people are no party. The majority of young people are not registering with party affiliation. And then before they register as Democrats, they're registering as Republicans, actually. Like that's the sort of order of this. So the only way that the Democrats can have young people is to buy them. And so what they end up with, people that are like just sort of tools that are just, but they don't have their own Gen Z audience because anybody who has any real knowledge or interest or like people that aren't complete, like, I guess, cucked betas that like grew up with with MSNBC on in their house. I mean, who are those types of Gen Zers talking to? Because most Gen Zers are not there, only ones that are paid.
And I think the most important thing about Harry Sisson, which I pointed out about a year ago, which I hope most people have picked up on at this point, there's two things of note with him. He comes from a very affluent family in one of the most affluent communities in the entire country in Westchester County, New York. And his father is heavily politically active and an influence within the Democratic Party.
So he's just a Nepo baby.
And most of these kids, I don't know their names. I don't care because they all look the same. They're all early 20, white male, prep school boys.
They all look like alpacas.
Yeah. And as Daryl Riley has pointed out in the chat, yes, that's one of many nicknames for Harry. Yes, he is that embodiment of that very beta type male that does not exude any type of masculine strength of any kind whatsoever. And I do think that Trump was very good at seizing, his relationships with the RFKs and the Dana Whites of the world. I mean, we saw what the reaction was when he walked into MSG over the weekend. I mean, that is a reflection of what I think has been sort of a backlash in many ways, because there has been this sort of anti-male crusading that's been going on within the Democratic Party, which again is all for it's
toxic masculinity.
Yeah, anything not to talk about living wage, healthcare, endless war, clean drinking water, anything that really matters to the average person.
Yeah.
You get distracted by these pointless things. The question becomes now, are these Harry Sisson types going to still have a place to make a lot of money going forward in politics? Do you think that's still going to happen?
I think so. I mean, I think that the space is there because the people in charge are still determined to do something with this demographic. And I think that there's just a lot of hubris. And I also think they hate masculinity. And so Harry Sisson is not just out there to signal to beta males. He's there to create them and tell guys like, hey, you want to get laid? Be a beta male, eat your Impossible Whopper and, get hysterical when you open your Marvel toys on Christmas morning and like tell everybody that you're an ally, and then you'll get laid, and if you don't, you'll get, like thrown out and, unpersoned. And so, I'm going to be a good little boy and eat my soy and play with my toys and get a vasectomy, even though I'm a virgin. And then,
Hey, all right, don't knock. Hey, I'm married to a urologist. Don't knock the vasectomy.
Well,
yeah, but it's weird and creepy when you see dudes who have like low T and they're bragging about getting a vasectomy. And I'm like, bro, have you ever been laid?
Like he actually brought that up himself.
but just to start, well, if you're on social media long enough, you'll run across people like that. But the other thing that also, and again, and Jen gets on
this is why I'm not on social media.
When you also see a lot of the women out there who are, and this I think comes full circle with just how, if there is one thing that I do think Trump has accomplished, and he will be remembered for this, I think he broke corporate media. Like, I think he really broke them. And just the fact that the most, outside of The View, the most watched regular show being Morning Joe on MSNBC.
So glorious.
The fact that they literally got on their hands and knees for him.
Like they so kissed the ring. It's so glorious.
After they said he was literally Hitler and that he's going to end the world. That's why I don't think that the shit that they were able to get away with, especially the fundraising in 2017 and 2018, I don't think the Democratic establishment's going to have the same luck with that this time around. I think
what's really freaky is those people would probably go kiss the ring of actual Hitler.
Oh, if it's suited their interest, I actually absolutely.
I think they would be like Zig Heiling, and they'd be like, it pays the bills.
Right. We kind of skipped over. I mean, we focused on that Ben kid, but we kind of skipped over the psychotic exchange between Cenk and the man baby, the man baby having a tantrum about being wrong.
Well, he had that blasphemy comment, and I think
against me.
I know what he meant. But I don't think that's what he meant. I think he genuinely thinks himself as some sort of a deity. 51 years as a professor, 13 books. I am to be respected. No, dude, you completely got it wrong. Like utterly, unbelievably wrong. And Cenk did, in fact, whoop your ass. And he said, well, I was in your comments. How pathetic are you that you're a 51-year-old law professor and you have to have your own self-confirmation, your own you need to prove to yourself that, yeah, I actually won. Let me go make sure that everybody else agrees that I won. And then you don't understand how social media works. The comments that appear at the top are going to be comments that are affiliated with your account, whether they're in your algorithm. Like you go on any Twitter post, X post, and you look at the comments and they're filtered based on people that you've engaged with or people with similar engagement scores for you. And so this guy's literally reading this thinking that he's the bee's knees and the shit and that you can't blaspheme against him. And it's just pathetic, man. It is.
That was really like watching a temper tantrum.
Jen,
it was ridiculous.
Do you remember when you were running for Congress and you were talking to some, I think, liberal women and they got offended because you wouldn't call First Lady Jill Biden Dr. Biden?
Doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, it's not that I don't recognize people with doctorates as being technically doctors. Okay. I get it. You know what I mean? But the whole concept of that is so pretentious to me. And I have a Juris Doctor. So, and it's just so funny to me. But like, I joke with people like, fine, then start calling me Esquire. Like, it's just the whole thing is just so pretentious and just so elitist and such a turnoff. And we all know that when someone is saying doctor, they're referring to generally someone that can prescribe medication. And it goes back to if you're looking for someone who can help in an emergency situation. So, for example, they actually let them speed more to work if you're on your way as a trauma doctor, right? Like if you have your PhD in philosophy, you don't need to be speeding anywhere, right? Like nobody cares that you're a doctor. So I just find it very pretentious and I just had to mock that. And yeah, there were people that were really put off by me. And so then for Halloween, I dressed up as a doctor.
Did you? Were you Dr. Jill?
I was Dr. Jill and I put a thing. And
that is a really
like my husband's scrubs. It was so funny.
I have a family member who lives in the Boston area and is the same,
There's very pretentious about titles.
Professor,
it's
call me
obnoxious.
doctor. But Brian, I think that gets back to one of the big issues, and I think this is more with men than it is with women in general, especially on that side. I have a total lack of respect for liberals, especially the big problem I have with them in particular is that they really look down on working people, especially people that work with their hands for a living. And the one thing about that Alan Lichtman guy, I don't think he can change a tire, much less change his oil.
No.
It's the
This is
things.
why I keep telling the blue people that when Armageddon happens,
what civil war?
When the electricity goes out, the red people are going to fare a lot better. That's what I can tell you. I just know that. I've been with the blue people. I've been with the red people. The blue people in their condos on the beach, not surviving. Okay, those are not the survivors.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't know where Lichtman's a professor at, but I doubt he even drives. Nonetheless, could change a tire. He probably has somebody that drives for him, or even crazier, he probably drives around on this little dorky ass bike. I guarantee you, he drives a bike. He rides a bike.
He's very anger. He's very quick to anger. That would be somebody with road rage.
Yeah, I mean, we have a crisis of masculinity in this country. I mean, that also, like, it was such an unmasculine, whiny baby response too. It was a whiny baby meltdown.
Yeah, it's what I say, man baby. It's like a man baby. Yep, you're not like, please.
I would definitely say that this is the most important topic of the evening. Of course, it's the one we will wind down with. And we have said very often, Angela, the first time you were here, Brian, the first time we met with Luke and the gang, there is this intersection of the anti-war populist movement in this country. Yeah. It does not have a color. It's not red or blue. It's not left or right. It is simply recognizing.
It's correct.
It's correct. That's a great way of putting it, Jim. That is
just correct.
And I always defer to people like Brian who have actually served this country, who actually know what handling a weapon in combat up close and personal is all about. And most of the people who are, particularly in the Democratic Party, advocates for what's going on in Ukraine and in the Middle East are people that have never picked up a weapon in their life and would never defend this country under any circumstances. But they'll send other people. They can't
change tires.
True. But they'll send Brian to go die. I mean, that they'll do.
But Brian can change tires.
I'm sure there's a lot that Brian.
That's where they send the tire changers. They're like, go become cannon fodder, you tire changer.
Yeah. But if there is one thing that I do believe that will happen in this Trump administration that I don't think will be tolerated, because again, everyone's like, "Oh, did you see all the Republicans voted against the?"
You're doing too much Bernie.
Yeah.
It was Bernie.
Did you see all the Republicans vote against my bill? That wasn't a good thing. I don't appreciate that.
At least he put forth a bill.
Until Trump is at the controls, there is a limit to what can be done right now. However, I have never seen a let's literally set the house on fire as we are walking out of the White House like the Biden administration is doing right now.
It's out of spite.
And this is the only thing that I give Biden the benefit of the doubt on. I don't think he's really there.
No.
So whoever is making this decision, as I've said, President
Although
Blinken,
I could see him wanting to do that even if he were there, quite honestly, because he does come off like a spiteful dick.
Oh,
like, sure. I could totally see that too. They are totally trying to set up Trump for failure. It's the same as the trickle down, the people in the party that think you get what you've got coming. Like, it's that same mentality of the deplorables. It's all of that shit.
If this was just a circumstance, no argument, but this would be one thing if the circumstance was simply, we are going to create an even bigger inflation problem for the American people once you take office. When you are fucking around with World War III, this is not a joke anymore. Like, at what point does somebody, where is the adults in the room that say this World War III is actually possible?
Nobody knows who's in charge. That's one of the problems, because as of people, my understanding is that we do not have diplomacy anymore. Everything is handled through the Department of Defense. The State Department is like totally on the back burner.
Well, who is the commander in chief?
Yes.
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Fantastic interview that just dropped this morning. If you guys have not, I personally like Tucker Carlson. I know not everybody.
Who is the commander in chief right now?
That's a good question. But there is an interview that just dropped today between Tucker Carlson and Glenn Greenwald. I highly recommend that you guys listen to it.
I love them both.
Yep. And Greenwald pointed out very eloquently how even during the Cuban Missile Crisis, even during the Reagan 80s, there was always back channels between the U.S. and Russia.
We've talked about this.
There are no back channels. Like,
not just Russia. Right now, we have no back channels with any of our adversaries. And I hate the term adversaries because that is stupid. Okay. But right now, there's any communication of any diplomatic means.
It's wild. It's totally wild that the anti-war party of the early 2000s has become like the nuclear war party of 2024.
Out of spite.
And
I don't get it.
And all because Hillary didn't get her crown.
Well,
that's where it all started.
That's not the only thing. There's a lot of variables, but
It's wild though, because she would have just blown everything up.
Oh,
absolutely. Like, the one thing that I will give Republicans on foreign policy is that they're anti-regime change at this point. You know, like I do not support the stuff that's going on with Israel like at all. But they seem to have become consistently pretty anti-regime change. And I think that is significant progress.
Yeah.
So I have a slightly different take here. And I do believe that there are still back channels to Russia. However, I don't think it's through our White House. I think it's through Mar-a-Lago. And I do believe that so if you go back to, I think it was like 2016, right before Donald Trump took office, Oliver Stone went over to Russia and did a 4-part interview with Vladimir Putin. And it's in Russian, so you have to read as you're watching it. But one of the things that really struck me is Oliver Stone had asked him about the incoming Trump administration. Now, keep in mind, this is before when Trump was still going to go nuclear on everybody and blow everybody up, and everything was going to, the world was going to end and everything else. And Putin had said something. First, he talked about Bill Clinton asking him if he'd be interested in joining NATO, but that's another topic. But then Putin said it doesn't matter who's in office because it's the bureaucrats around them that control everything. So it really doesn't matter if it's Hillary, if it's Trump or whatever. But I think this go round now, after 4 years of Trump, after the diplomatic relationship between the U.S. and North Korea, Kim Jong-un, Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, I think they all have a mutual respect for each other. And we like to joke and call this the sovereign alliance. It doesn't mean we're allies and we're going to go to war with them, but it means, hey, Russia, you stay over there. We'll stay over here. We'll stay in our own backyards. And I think that with the appointments that Donald Trump is putting in place right now with Elon Musk, with Vivek Ramaswamy and the Doge, I think that they're realizing potentially that Putin is saying, let me wait this out and see. This is a desperate man in Joe Biden in doing this, or whoever's pulling the strings. This is desperation to the absolute fullest. So let me defend myself as much as I can. Let me push back as much as I can. I think the same can be said when you see Israel and Iran right now. Every time Israel wants to strike back of Iran in the last couple months, what's happened? The plans get leaked to Iran. This isn't organic. This again, I'm putting on my tinfoil hat. I don't believe that's organic. You have the same woman that was leaking that was part of the Iranian spy ring that we found out about just before October 7th. And now all of a sudden she's back in the media as the leaker. By the way, she got promoted after that Iranian spy ring. She's back in the news as the leaker to Iran. And then you have another leak that Israel's going to attack. So I do believe there are forces at play. We'll just call them forces at play that are kind of keeping things to a simmer until the adults are back in charge. And that's why I'm not really that worried. That article there was that CBS article about the ICBMs, because I think that came out and said that they did not fire ICBMs.
I definitely hope that's true. There is a big anti-war demonstration being planned right now. Someone just reached out to me December 7th and 8th in Washington, D.C. Okay. Jose Vega, Scott Ritter, I think like the Schiller Institute people, and also obviously libertarians, which is why they reached out to me. They're trying to put together a big, nonpartisan, just like no nuclear war, Biden, check yourself, so be on the lookout for that. As terrible as it is, I think it's good that people are unifying against it. And I hope we can send a strong message.
I hope so. I don't think people realize how close we are to a real situation. And I believe this for some time, that the only reason that it hasn't happened, the only reason that Tel Aviv hasn't been leveled, the only reason that these things is by the grace and intelligence of people of other countries. Okay. So whether it's, you're looking at how Russia's handling it, how Iran is handling it, they're actually using a certain amount of ration and reason, which we have seemed to have thrown out the door here. Like we're just insane. But I do not think that Putin is bluffing. I don't think he's bluffing. And I think that they are going to end up in the find out portion of what's going to happen. And I think it's going to be really a rude awakening.
Ukraine very well might, but I don't think it will extend beyond that. I don't think it will extend beyond that. And if something was really happening, do you think Kamala would be on vacation in Hawaii right now for a week?
Yes. Who cares?
Well, probably the safest place to be.
Please, where is she going to go? Where is she going to, like, seriously?
She is unburdened by
Are they
what
this
almost
vain?
was.
Are they this vain that they will watch Joe Biden do all this and then 25th him and say that he's unfit for command just to install Kamala so that the Democrats can say, look, we have the first female black vice president and Indian vice president or president?
They would have already done it. They would have already done it. I actually thought they were going to do that right after the halfway point. Because at that point, then she'd still be able to have 2 more terms.
I thought they would do it before the convention, because then, she's an incumbent. She's going to have more fire and energy.
Yeah.
But she can't win a primary though.
Well, Joe's not going out without a fight.
And I actually don't think she'd be able to win even if she were the incumbent. I think the results would have been pretty much the same. I do. She is very not popular. Nobody liked her in 20. She's terrible. She's
super unlikable.
Yes.
Well, we need a big high five to Angela up there in the Libertarian Party for what they did. Probably the most incredible election game, I guess, that was played there.
Chasing Kamala out of office. Yeah, man, that was wild. That was wild. Hoping to leverage it also into some presidential pardons. I got sued over it. I had 2 people sue me. Very, very unhinged individuals. Very angry.
What kind of cause of action could somebody have?
A bogus derivative lawsuit that they didn't like the direction I took the party. And I was just like, well, respectfully die mad because the rest of the board disagrees with you.
Yeah.
I was thinking if there was an opportunity to really make change, and maybe we are just a country that unfortunately is stuck for the foreseeable future with a 2-party system. But if that is the case, the way you're going about it is infinitely more productive than anything that I have seen on the left since Bernie had an opportunity at the convention in 2016 to really break the country from the 2-party grip. He had a shot. He could have done it. I was there in Philly, and he chose not to do it. For whatever the reasons are that he did, it was the wrong decision. And I hope he realizes to this day how much he hurt the working class movement, the populist movement in this country. Your decision to basically say, I'm not going to run the risk of the libertarians securing 3 to 4 or even 5% of the vote, and in key swing states, potentially making the difference. I am going to negotiate with the great negotiator himself at the Libertarian Convention. And you did. You negotiated with a guy who's about business. He's like, okay, well, what do I have to do to make sure that I win? The libertarians want this. Okay, then I guess we're going to have to play ball. And Trump,
very strategic.
It was very strategic.
You have an opportunity as a third party or an independent to inflict pain on the worst people in office, or to be the fixers. Like, you don't always have to be the spoiler. You could be a fixer and you can improve a campaign. You extract concessions. And that's also what Kennedy has done. He has done a phenomenal job of it. He's now going to be heading up HHS. Tulsi Gabbard, who is another ally, she's going to be director of national intelligence. That's fantastic. There's so many cool opportunities for us if we can think outside the box.
One thing I will say about Tulsi, even though I've met her a handful of times, I will always respect her because she served our country and she served as a medic. I mean, you're talking about one of the toughest jobs that you could possibly have in combat, where you literally have to deal with people either severely injured or near death or dead. And doing those things, especially the amount of intestinal fortitude it takes to do that job, that's why she doesn't give a fuck. That's why she has this very laissez-faire attitude when people come at her from all sides. And you know how much it kills somebody like Wasserman Schultz that Tulsi is now in a real position of power. I said this.
That's just like a
It's
perk.
poetic justice. It
is.
really is. I
It's
said this
so
on my
nice.
solo show on Sunday. I said, the Democrats are really good at killing people or destroying people, but they didn't make sure that Tulsi was dead and buried. That was their mistake.
I would have preferred her as Secretary of State. And I say that just because I
Yes.
think that's the position that Debbie really thought she was going to get if Hillary had won. I think that was Debbie thought she would have like some sort of Secretary of State position. So the fact like Tulsi in that position would be like the ultimate screw you.
Well, that's why the beautiful thing about real neocon, even though he's going to be, out of the U.S. Senate, that's the thing about Rubio. If the movement is strong and it's solid, and especially if you use that power in the midterms, who's to say that Rubio is going to last as Secretary of State that long?
Well, we have sort of like, what do you call it? Not an over under on who's going to be the first of these appointees to not make it the full year. Like, because the truth is Trump's big on firing people.
Yes.
And there's usually a whole lot of turnover. So I would not bet that any of the people are going to make it past 1 year, let alone 2. Right?
Plus, I also have a habit of firing people.
He loves to fire people. Look,
I was surprised by Rubio. There was a lot of stuff going on in the Senate. I thought it was going to go to Rick Grenell, who is close to President Trump and who advocated really hard for the Libertarian Party.
And where would he have put Rubio? Where would he put Rubio?
Oh yeah, I just was like thinking, Rubio will stay in the Senate, and then that
happened. That wasn't up to Trump.
Here's the thing,
I
Angela.
know. Yeah, that's the sucky part.
Here's the thing, Angela. I don't know if you know this or not. I think he's the most absentee senator in the Senate.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
He was basically like picked by Sheldon Adelson. Like that was his person. And this, I do believe, was one of the deals that was made. Now, whether or not it was that he specifically had to be that position, or you just need to have I don't know. But that's what I think that is.
Yeah.
I will never forgive him for letting Victoria Nuland off the hook in that Senate hearing as she was spilling the beans about our biolabs in Ukraine. And he just flat out interrupts her. And he's like, yeah. But if there was a biological attack, it would totally be Russia, right? It would totally be Russia. It couldn't possibly be the 34 biolabs that we have throughout Ukraine that are they're decommissioned. They're not bioweapons. They're there to dispose of bioweapons. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Listen,
it's Senate basically terrorizing us and telling Donald Trump, that they're going to have their pound of flesh, out of his agenda. And so that sucks. I wanted it to be Rick because I'm friends with Rick, which a lot of people now are like, ooh, and I'm like, do you not think
we're not going to agree on everything?
No.
Yeah. I'm like, but don't you think it's a good thing for the Libertarian Party chair to just be able to pick up a phone and call the Secretary of State? Like, dude, and I'm also a really strong believer in the, redemption story arcs. And I've seen Rick move a little bit more in a libertarian direction and also really go out on a limb for me and for the Libertarian Party. So I'm like, that's somebody who's really looking to move in the right direction in some areas. Maybe they all want to blow up Iran still. I don't know. But, maybe we can have a little less war.
I got news for you, Angela. Rick Scott wants to run for president.
I mean Rick Grenell, not Rick Scott. No,
if Rick is going to do what he's going to do, everything with him is extremely calculating. So that's why I always look at it as everything's a means to an end. And if the means to an end, for example, in Florida, is to replace Rubio with somebody like Gaetz, I think that's a winner. In fact, I think that's a
See, that's actually for us, that's preferable of a situation. I mean, selfishly speaking, of a situation. But I am not with the Fox guy that he appointed for Secretary of Defense. I'm not with that.
So let me jump in on that because he just did a podcast a few days before he was selected with Sean Ryan. And I listened to that on a drive home I was in South Carolina. Actually, that's when we were setting this up. And I initially was the same way. I'm like, okay, not because of his experience, but because he has a lot of really, really pro-Israel things to say. And I just don't think we need that kind of bias in that position. However, I think that was a while back. And after listening to that podcast, I do believe he has more of a level head on his shoulders. But the most important thing is he's fresh blood. He rose to the rank of a major. He was never a yes man politician general. I'm not going to dismiss Pete Hegseth just yet. I still think that he's got potential.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, and I still will go back to let's see who even makes it.
But
It's sort of like like playing Survivor. We should actually do it like the Survivor segment, and every time someone gets eliminated, they get voted off the island.
But this is also why it is very important that we have these conversations, because with the conversations that we typically have, and there are, people on the left in politics that we think really have a very good understanding of what's going on and is not just kowtowing to the Democratic establishment. Like I mentioned, our friend Jordan Charrington with Status Quo News. Tim Black does a really great job with his show. Jamal Thomas, if you haven't listened to him.
These are just people that are populist people.
They are. And they are on the left, but they totally get the difference between what I think is the libertarian left and the authoritarian left. And we definitely fall under the libertarian left side.
Correct.
And the government is too big. It is too corrupt. And at some point, you got to pull, you got to pull it back. Like, I don't know how much longer people think that they could just hang on. But that is also the scary part about the left, is that they're too passive. They're just assuming that somebody else is going to save the day. We are the ones who've been waiting for it. We have to collectively work together to solve these infrastructural problems, because if we don't, let me tell you something, BRICS, that's a real thing.
It's a real thing.
People better get real serious about the devaluation of the US dollar, because that's happening. That's why China and Russia uniting economically against the United States, that's a serious problem that you can't just solve.
See, and I don't find that to be a problem. Why is that a problem?
Well, it could be an economic problem of even
for
greater
oligarchs.
Bitcoin's about to break 99,000.
Yeah.
It's $100.
I mean, I worry.
Let's go.
Like, I think that BRICS is a good thing for people all around the world.
So do I.
And for breaking, one of the major, the funding of the military-industrial complex. I worry about the massive economic instability that could cause for regular people.
That's what I'm saying.
The dollar is devalued.
I think it's not going to happen quickly. I think that the way that BRICS has been moving, I mean, this was their first real official meeting summit. I don't think it's anything that's going to happen quickly. And my understanding is that they're not seeking to have a currency amongst them. Every country wants to trade in their own currency and not have to deal with the sanctions and the crap from us as like the monetary police of the world. And so I can't help but root for them because it's like, and I've always said it, like, I don't care what language my oligarch speaks. Do you think it matters to the little people whether or not your oligarch is Russian or Chinese? Really, does it matter? And so it's just a matter of anything that is going to definitely stop empire and halt our ability to just control the world is positive to me. Like, to me, that's not a problem. I'm just saying, and I think they are entitled to trade however the hell they want to trade. It's infuriating to me that we punish people for that.
One last question. Angela, as the chair.
That's libertarian, right, Angela? That's a pretty libertarian.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely.
Angela, as the chair of the Libertarian Party, obviously the goal over the next several years is to grow membership, to grow financial infrastructure, and become an even bigger force. What would be an issue that you think would, I mean, again, I know libertarians tend to be very militant, at least that's the old school libertarianism, but maybe the new school libertarianism is maybe a little bit more flexible in terms of how they see the ability to attract more supporters into their coalition. I'm not saying you have to change core values necessarily, but is there anything that you see as a key issue that you think will attract more people to your side? And what is an issue that you think would be advantageous for the left that would actually make them more appealing to people if they got their butts in gear?
Yeah,
sure. Well, I mean, being anti-war is a huge unifying issue, And that's something that we're going to be leaning into. But, you know, the other thing I'm leaning into really hard right now is freeing political prisoners. And, you know, there are political prisoners on both sides, you know, like the Uhuru guys, those guys were heavily persecuted.
We've had them on our show. We had not Chairman O'Malley. We had Penny and I forget the other man's name. We had them on our show to talk about that. No, that's also really upsetting. Yeah.
We don't want to be locking people up. We don't want to be locking people up. We don't believe in thought crimes. I'm really passionate about getting Ross Ulbricht out of prison. Also, Roger Ver. The thing with Roger Ver, you know, he was like one of the OG Bitcoin guys. And there was like a Bitcoin split, you know, and he was like the Bitcoin Cash guy. And one of the things that's been so discouraging to me is to see Bitcoin people be like, you know, like, I don't care. You know, he has a different view on Bitcoin than me. And I'm like, these are, you know, it's like my brother in Christ. You know, these are our brothers and sisters. These are human beings who are innocent of wrongdoing. They've not committed crimes. They've not hurt anyone. No one like that deserves to be in prison. Like, we got to wrap our arms around these guys and do everything we can to protect them from the weaponization of the justice system. They go after political dissidents. Yeah. And I think that that's something that libertarians should champion. And we, you know, should welcome support from progressives and independents and anybody who wants to champion that with us. You know, like how you want to spend your dollars, you know, you try to comply with the IRS and their response to that is to kick in your attorney's door and question him at gunpoint. Like, that's wrong. And so, you know, I want to be the one to put those pardons on the president's desk and hope that he signs them.
Yeah. Well, I think you'll have a much better chance with Trump than you will with Biden.
Yes. Fingers crossed.
Well, I mean, Trump, you know, look, when he first got in, one of the things that I did like, I think a lot of people did, and I'm not a Kardashian person by any stretch, but when he was doing clemency and he was doing that for people with Kim Kardashian, and that was really impactful. And I don't know the list or how many or anything like that, but I do think, and I've said this before, he likes to be liked.
Yes.
And he wants to be popular and he likes to be the man about town. And I do think that when the right people influence him, that he cares what they think, that with things like that. And I think that you're really smart and strategic about this, because these are the kinds of issues where you can help so many people.
Yeah.
And most people won't even know it's happening. And it's such an under the radar thing for most of these people, that it's a really good way to, I think it's very smart, because you could definitely be effective with someone like Trump in that.
And even though RFK hasn't even been confirmed yet, and I'm still skeptical about him and Tulsi, because I just think that the system is just so broken at this point. That's why you know, the GOP has not reformed. The MAGA movement is very real, but then again, we're trying to work through a system that, again, has been so corrupted for so very long, and we're trying to unwind this. Just the fact that somebody like Bobby made it his mission to basically talk about two primary issues when he ran for president that I thought were substantially important. The fact that private equity has completely taken over housing in the United States, and the fact that we literally eat poisoned food.
Yeah.
And you could give it to me for this, because I do like Doritos and I do like Cheetos.
It's disgusting. I don't do orange food. There is no orange food.
No, well, listen, orange is a great color, believe me.
Not unless it's sweet potato. Yes, I don't. I never let my kids have orange shit because I don't like the fingerprints. It's disgusting.
But once you start reading the labels on these items, and the fact that you had, was it the New York Times that wrote a rebuttal article about RFK and said that grapeseed or that just seed oils in general are good for you? I mean, how much more obvious do you want to make it that you're corrupt to the teeth? Like, at some point, you just have to say, well, maybe they are lying to us. Yeah, they are, for money and power. That's it. If you want to eat healthy, there are many ways to do it, and it doesn't even have to be that expensive. And I think just him having that position to get out there and tell the American people that if you eat this food, it's not good for you. And as far as I'm concerned, I hope he gets it.
I think he will. I'm not sure about Tulsi. Not personally, I'm just saying.
Well, everybody loves Tulsi. I mean, except for
there's things I don't agree with about her, but I've always respected that she spoke truth to power, and I feel the same way about RFK. I don't agree with him on a lot of things, but I do like having somebody in that position that speaks truth to power.
He called me yesterday and had a bunch of nice things to say.
That's so nice.
He's a genuinely nice person. He's just like genuinely sweet person. I've had dinner with him several times. I could call him anytime. That's another, like, this is like I don't know what timeline.
Have you told him he's wrong on Israel?
Politely, yes.
Because honestly, if he would have gotten right with that, I would have been a lot more supportive of him.
We were saying he could have changed the entire game if he did, but
still working on it.
Yeah,
well, working on it, by the way.
I respect about it is that at least he's honest about it. They are an aircraft carrier in the Middle East. It's like, yeah, Bobby, that is what they are.
Which we don't like.
And a lot of the people close to him are also still working on it. I'm in an interesting position because I've now, I'm just 1 degree away. I'm just a phone call away from a lot of these people, and the temptation is often, like, do you want to blow these people up on areas you disagree with? I'm like, no, I don't want to cut my line of communication.
No.
But that's the power of negotiation. And that's why I do think Trump's second term could actually be very effective. Because as he said on Rogan, and I had this feeling when he went on that it was going to make the election. I had that feeling. Ironically enough,
I knew he was winning long before that.
Well, it just, again, everything happens for a reason. I happened to have been in Austin at the exact same time. And while I was leaving, there's the Trump jet right out on the tarmac, and we ended up getting delayed 2 hours because eventually got out of it. Let me tell you something. If you guys haven't seen Secret Service detail for an attempted assassination on the president, now if you really want to see what Secret Service looks like, let me tell you, it's like a 200 deep fleet. It ain't a joke. So
it's very scary. It's very intimidating.
Yeah.
The scope helmet crap is I don't know what it's called.
Listen, maybe one day
Brian probably knows.
Yeah, we'll get maybe one day.
It was nuts. I don't even know how to. There were like the guys, the Secret Service guys who had their rifles and they were in fatigues, had just like crazy shit coming off their helmets too.
Well, let me tell you something. The other thing that was very interesting, because I was driving from I don't know how well you guys know Texas, but I was staying in a town called Round Rock because I was there. I'm in commercial real estate, and I was there for our annual convention. And so I'm driving on the highway to get to the international airport in Austin.
Yep.
This was the time that I was driving to the airport was when he was because I know where Rogan lives. I'm not going to tell you where that is, but we're driving. So I knew how far his distance was. Let me tell you, they shut down everything.
Yeah, well,
I live here. I live close to the airport, and I was trying to meet someone somewhere.
Texas very well.
I was trying to meet someone at the same time, and we just canceled our plans because we just couldn't. We couldn't get there. It was just not going to happen within the time frame.
I was just lucky. I was going in the opposite direction of where he was going.
Can I say Austin has some of the worst traffic anyway on a normal day, and Austin, for proportionate to its size, has horrendous traffic. Austin has traffic like Atlanta has traffic.
Really? I don't think it's that bad. I mean,
it's proportionate to its population.
I moved here from LA. I don't think it's that bad, but I do.
Oh, that's LA's. You're going from like the worst to just slightly.
I do hate the roads as a libertarian. I hate all the roads. I want to blow them up and peel them off the road. Who will build the roads? No one. Whoever built the roads in Austin should not be the person to ever build the roads, because they have this weird frontage road system where
everything is a frontage road. Everything is a frontage road in Texas.
If you miss your exit,
you're screwed.
You're just totally screwed. It's absurd.
You kind of go a lot around a lot of turnarounds.
I don't understand.
Can we agree on high-speed rail? Is that something we can agree on?
I want high-speed rail. I want Hyperloop. I want to teleport. I got to tell you, if there were no government roads, if someone hadn't built those stupid interstate, we'd probably already have all of that stuff by now. But we have these stupid government roads.
It also has to do with the power of the fossil fuel industry and the fact that
they suck up patents for interesting, ingenuitive, transportation novel
they
ideas.
Don't want us to have that.
They just sit on them. They're like, and they just hoard them like a dragon with gold. And then so now we don't have teleportation and hyperloops and hyper potato, whatever.
I want to teleport.
Nuclear power? Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Big nuclear power guy.
Okay. So
not me, but I want to live in a house in the woods. So
that's
you
fine,
not all of it, but like the newer versions of it. Yes.
Yes. Series 4. And I keep emphasizing to people, if if corporate special interest doesn't give a damn about solar and wind, but they shit a brick over nuclear, you know what the energy sources that you need to get away from coal and natural gas. That's it.
Or we could start focusing on things like degrowth and living in regenerative, sustainable communities. But no,
Community
let's
gardens.
just keep, not just that, but I
But
mean,
that's
that's the
part of
thing.
it.
Like, I don't support the concept of the nuclear, but I'm significantly okay with downsizing, living differently, being off grid, being able to like live in smaller communities. So I don't want that. So that's not I don't want that. I want degrowth.
I don't agree with the degrowth, but I do agree with being able to sustain yourself and live in environments where you have self-sustenance. But I don't know about degrowth.
I would say deregulate so that people can live off grid a lot easier.
Absolutely.
Like, so that the feds don't come kick in the door of your tiny home because you didn't.
Well, then if you live off grid, you still have to have a job of some sort because you can't just grow your own food and eat your own food and do your own things on your own property.
That's what I'm trying to
do.
That's the ultimate.
Can I just say I love that for you, but I don't. I want to go to HEB. I don't want to dig in the dirt, but I love that for you.
Well, that could be an option.
I don't think this should be like a requirement, but I'm just saying, like, for those of us that are willing to live a different life, I don't feel the need to support coming up with high energy alternatives to what that's all I'm saying. Like, I just want like a nuclear
hamster, like a hamster and a Tesla battery and something where like I can have lots of all my lights on all the time, lots of power.
Right.
Remember that Tom Cruise movie where like they were looking for like a battery, a AA sized battery that could power like a whole city?
That sounds amazing. That movie?
It was a Tom Cruise movie. I think Cameron Diaz. I think it was like Night and Day or something.
You're thinking of
Night and Day.
Yeah, I think that's it.
There's probably some oil company that sits on that patent somewhere. It's just buried in some old cabinet. They're like life-changing technological innovation. Put that away. Don't let anyone see that.
Or what about things like regenerative agriculture, which we know is the better way to go in terms of impact on the earth, impact on climate. It's healthier, better. So, I mean, like, those are the kinds of things. And I am hopeful that RFK will address some of that stuff, because this is also one of the things about our food supply is that people are unwilling to live according to seasons. They want what they want when they want it. So you want strawberries, tomatoes, when you want them. You don't care how they're shipped. You don't care how much energy goes into it. That is not sustainable. And it all goes because basically all we do now is make corn.
And who is most guilty of that?
All of us.
But there is a specific class of people that have made this such a big crisis.
All we do is make corn and send corn. Like, it's really bad.
Big city and suburban liberals are as big of a cause of this problem as anything, because I'm sure you guys have met, as I have, many people that literally can't get out of their own way. Everything has to be Instacart and immediately delivered, and the ability to take care of things on your own. That, to me, is a huge part of why we are sitting in the crisis that we're in right now. In many ways, it's not everything, because
the Dorito cult,
the Dorito cult, yes. But once you start reading the labels on food, once you start realizing that, canola oil, soybean oil, things like that is so bad for you that it really it affects your sleep, it affects your digestion, and everything. There are just so many.
Well, we're being poisoned.
We are.
Cellular level, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would think if we were a much healthier nation, it would be much easier to have, let's say, a single payer healthcare system, because we're such a sick culture that
we are super sick.
That is part of why healthcare is so expensive.
Well, we're poisoning the people, like things like sugar and stuff. But
as Liberty Lion says, hydrogenated oil.
Yeah,
that's a big part of it.
I mean, but we're poisoning. It's disgusting. But what's so frustrating is that the same companies that put a lot of that crap in the food here, but they don't do it in the EU. Right.
Well, or it's illegal in the EU, and people don't want to eat it in the EU too.
Well, because they have had a government, whatever you want to say about it, that has essentially protected them from things like that. That is the point of regulation. We don't want them. It's like profit is okay if you're providing what we all kind of need, what we all kind of want. But that's not what's happening. And they're profiting off of like high fructose corn syrup, and we can't do anything else.
And,
I mean, how can we possibly be healthy?
And one of the best things that RFK has pointed out time and again, which I think is critical to people really recognizing that we have to change things, is that there's like 22 or 23 substances in our foods that are banned in Europe. You're
That's
not
what
allowed
I'm
to get
saying.
them.
Yeah.
And yet they put them in our food here. Why is that?
Because it's profitable.
Yeah. And this was always the biggest thing about COVID, and why, despite what some people in the chat were saying, we are libertarian left. We were anti-mandate, anti-lockdown.
Yeah, I don't know why someone would say that's so weird. Like
they're just haters. They're just haters.
But it's like you could say something more general, but to point out something that could be so clearly shown to be like, that's just stupid.
But the point is, the reason why the death rates were higher here than they were almost anywhere else, and what was the biggest killer by far? It was diabetes. Diabetes. It was
FAT.
the biggest killer.
People were FAT.
And then,
am I allowed to say that on YouTube?
Yes. Why can't you say that? Is it just me?
And this is why it flies in the face of people that get way too caught up in the labels and the identity and things like that. You can't look at somebody like Peter Hotez and listen to the things that he was saying, which seemed completely insane. And then you look at somebody like RFK, and I'm thinking, no. If you're going to say that somebody like Rogan is taking horse dewormer, then clearly you're lying. Clearly, whatever it is that you're saying is being done deliberately, because the truth is we don't need all of this medication. We don't need all of these unhealthy foods. What we need is to change. We need to change the infrastructure in this country. And what I think we're learning is that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen with the populist right. And you guys are doing a job that if we find areas that we agree on, we're going to stand with you in solidarity all the way.
I don't think they're the right. How are they the right? Where are they the right?
Oh, we're the economic right.
Oh, okay.
Scary economic right.
Yeah.
Angela, Brian, thank you guys so much for coming on this evening. And thank you for what you
Appreciate
do. And I have no doubt that we'll be seeing you in 2025, hopefully for another conversation. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you,
Christmas,
guys.
and we'll be talking.
All right.
Thank you.
Great to meet you, Angela. Keep up
Great to meet
the
you.
work out there.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Okay, so we are playing for guys, I'm still promoting my war criminal genocide cards. They're not mine personally, but it's a nice little product. So if you go to thewarcriminals.com, and it's an entire deck of playing cards with a whole bunch of war criminals, and the art that was done for it. There's a little story about the art that was done for it. If you go to the website, it explains it. And the money is all of the money is going to help children, Palestinian children from Gaza, in Gaza, with medical stuff.
That is, Liberty Lion is absolutely right about that. That's the thing about NAFTA and the TPP that people forget. And this is one of the biggest issues that I've always had with free trade, is that if you trade with countries that employ slave labor, but then again, we pretty much have slave labor here in America.
Of course we do.
So you're never going to get to a point where we're going to have a living wage, because if we can always export economic opportunity to countries where people are willing to work for pennies on the dollar, or you want to open up the floodgates at the border because labor is starting to get their sea legs here in the United States. The goal is to always bring in people who will work for pennies on the dollar and screw everyone in the process.
Now, my goal would be to unify workers globally, wherein you couldn't get away with doing that. But I would also suggest that we could have laws in this country that don't allow companies that do work in this country to violate whatever our codes are in this country just because they're in another country. We could actually do that. There's all sorts of like sticks and carrots that we can use on corporations to not have them abuse people in other countries as well.
That'd be
So
great.
just because it happens somewhere else doesn't mean it's not our problem. I have a problem with just because you get away with now. I have no problem with people in other countries being paid less according to whatever their living wage is in their country. Like, obviously, if you live in a country that has a lower standard of living, I don't mind that. But no, everybody everywhere deserves a living wage. This is not complicated.
Yeah. It's like the old adage, if you don't want people dependent on the government, make sure they have enough so they don't have to be. You think most people want to live off the government? Look, there's always going to be people that are going to be freeloaders.
There's always
You can't
freeloaders.
Stop that. But the overwhelming majority of people want to have a decent way of life. It's not asking for a lot.
And this is my argument about freeloaders. And I used to say this as somebody who did criminal defense, the idea that I would rather have 100 guilty people go free than one innocent person go to prison. It's the same concept with when we talk about freeloaders. I would rather 100 people freeload off of something than somebody not get what they need. And that's just how I feel. So I understand that there's going to be freeloaders.
Yeah.
I get that. I do. And that's when the whole concept of austerity and that sort of mean, angry politics gets so offensive to me, because it's just so angry and mean.
To our libertarians, Liberty Lion, Brian, Dylan Hanneman.
Do they believe in worker co-ops? I would think so.
What do you guys think about worker co-ops? Again, it's not a union. It's basically workers deciding that they are going to, is it control?
They own the means of production. They own. So it would basically be, this is the concept, which is what I am completely for. So imagine the corporations that we have, but instead of shareholders, it was the employees. So that's how a co-op works. So they own the company like shareholders own the company of other things. So yes, I do support that concept.
I mean, I've seen it in
That's
action.
the only kind of shareholders I like.
I've seen it in action, and it actually has worked pretty effectively.
I think it depends on the industry. It depends. There's variables. I think that it's not a one size fits all, just like anything else. I don't think there's one way of conducting business that works for all different types of businesses. Different businesses need different types of business structures. Organizational structure is really something that is not the same across the board. I appreciate that. The only thing that needs to be universal really is that workers make a living wage. You know what I'm saying? Like our safety net, our minimum standard of living and what we accept for people to have a life of dignity needs to be very clear and specific. I do too. And yet I don't think that should be, I absolutely, and I would very much be happy in that environment. I don't think that, and I'm okay with people who don't want that. That's fine. But there needs to be, we all come to an agreement as to what is our minimum level of life that we're willing to have.
And I think the argument when it comes to, like, the libertarians are always looking at where, we spend too much, our government's too big and all that. So then the question is, what is a safety net versus welfare? Because I always equate a safety net as like a trampoline. The goal is to, if you're down on your luck, you should be able to jump on the trampoline and bounce back up again. Whereas welfare, I look at it as quicksand. That's why we live in a country where people, like I always say, the worst corporation in the United States, bar none, is Walmart. They pay a slave wage, and they also have a welfare office in their operation.
McDonald's does the same thing.
Like they basically tell you, okay, so this is what we're going to pay you, and here's the opportunity to get government assistance since we're not going to pay you a living
They give
wage.
them, well, with McDonald's, when you apply to McDonald's and you fill out the job application, you also get, or you get onboarded as an employee. They give you the forms to fill out to get assistance. That's the problem. And yet they're making record profits. So the way it should be is instead of the shareholders getting those profits, it should go to the employees. Right. So they like that is the concept that I do support that. And that's okay if you want, honestly, if this is why I think that democracy and capitalism just cannot exist. They cannot coexist.
Well, I don't think it could stand on its own. It's just not possible.
The problem is that I would love to say that, okay, you don't want all businesses as worker co-ops. Well, that's fine. But then you need to have some regulations in place to protect the workers that work for businesses that are run with outside shareholders. But the problem is, if in order for them to really be able to keep up with what other people will be getting paid in situations with worker co-ops, will make that not competitive. So that's why when people say something about like capitalism is free market, not really. Because if they had to compete with businesses that were worker co-ops and they weren't getting subsidies and weren't able to basically get money from not making a profit, those kinds of businesses would have failed. People like Jeff Bezos would have failed.
And this is the same argument, and this is the consistent argument of libertarians when it comes to economics, which is the difference between supporting labor and supporting the union is that there is this concept, and again, not all unions are the same. We're very clear about that. But basically in unions, you don't have a choice. Like if you are in a union, you have to pay dues and you have to go along with it. but it's not always the hierarchy. That's why we said, there are unions that basically just go based on what the rank and file wants, and then the leadership does as the rank and file asks. There are not so good unions, and I always say the teachers union comes to mind. We didn't get a chance to talk. Libertarians want to do away with the Department of Education. And there are arguments to be made for
honestly, the way that it is currently run, I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I would need to see what their plan is. But I support funding for state education. So it depends on what that means when you say we're getting rid of that. Yeah, Congress is the worst union. I support federal funding for education. Now, whether or not that is through the Department of Education or how much superfluous, wasted nonsense goes on there. So the idea of getting rid of that doesn't bother me.
Well, I read today that that was probably the signature policy of the Carter administration. They, in his last year, formed the Department of Education. And they say that since 1980, we were in like the top 5 in education in the world at that time. Today, we're like in below 20.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So like, I'm not necessarily averse to that, but I think for a lot of the people that want to do away with it. Hi, Willie. We need to schedule with him.
Yes.
Okay. So
thank you, Willie.
Thank you, Willie. The problem is I think a lot of the people that like the idea of getting rid of the Department of Education, they just don't want any federally funded education.
Liberty, one of the problems with school choice that you have to remember that not everybody wants to talk about is that when you have, and again, this is the thing about taxes. Remember, if you don't understand modern monetary theory, there's a difference of federal taxes versus state and local. And so in a state like Florida, what we have with our tax money is that it gets facilitated into charter schools, which that's not the way it's designed. It's not supposed to be that.
Have very little oversight, that
Correct.
end up going out of business, that end up, and the kids
it's a
get screwed.
I mean, look at what's happening.
It's not a good plan.
Look what's happening with New College here in Florida because of DeSantis and his crusade.
And not just that, I also don't like the idea of the money just getting funneled over to the religious schools. I don't want that. I feel like this is one of the ways they're circumventing the church and state separation and getting money, public money, to religious institutional schools.
Sisyphean, I don't agree with you in totality on that, but there are elements of libertarianism that basically is this, every man, woman, and child for themselves, which this is why I can't fully embrace libertarianism all the way.
I agree with her, and that's fine, but I'll take my allies in whatever, realm, and whatever their reasons are irrelevant to me. If we're against the war, we're against the war.
And the good news is that a lot of the key issues that libertarians are fighting for are issues that I agree on wholeheartedly.
I agree with them on issues of civil liberty. I agree with them on issues of war. I agree with them on like what Angela was saying about freeing political prisoners, because that's really a civil liberties issue.
Yeah, criminal justice reform, they're really
right.
On
so
it.
there are things involving civil liberties and libertarians that I really do agree with them on. And I always will say that the problem is they don't support social safety net. They don't support universal basic services. I'm sure they wouldn't support federal job guarantee, which to me is the best way to deal with the living wage issue. I wouldn't agree with them on a lot of things. But I will be very happy to support them in freeing political prisoners and fighting for, free speech.
But that's the difference with the way that we approach politics, which is if you're going to transform politics into service, you have to find common ground with people that you normally disagree with. And this is the big problem, particularly in, I don't even know if it's so much left politics, but especially with liberal politics.
It's liberal and Democrat, although depends on what we're saying is the left.
Well, this is why
there's a lot of infighting.
Yeah. But I also think that it's a big problem when people are not talking enough about the fact that you have these liberals on, and granted, it's a different concept because we're talking about social media. Here's a libertarian aspect. We agree.
But that's civil liberties.
And so the big problem here that I think a lot of people are missing is when you feel that, for example, Twitter is not a forum that you want to express your thoughts on, or you feel that you are not getting enough of a isolated viewpoint. So I'm just going to create a social media channel that I can just go to and be with all my blue buddies and reassure each other that we're right. It's like
they need a safe space.
Yeah, it's like Lichtman. Lichtman needs a safe space.
You know those people that do the Gen X things on Instagram? There's that Kelly Mono. I don't know. I follow her. She's adorable. She's the one who basically went on the rant about like, don't mess with Gen X. It's this same kind of mentality as to what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, what is wrong with these people?
The last thing we have to talk about before we go, of course.
And I'm excited for this guy. So if you're following along today, in my hands so far, I only have Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and Bernie Sanders as the Joker. Well, he's one of the two Jokers, is Bernie Sanders. So right now I'm sitting on the five of spades, the ace of spades, and the Joker.
It's like a trump card.
And I'm excited because we're bringing in a whole new suit.
Okay.
We're bringing in a whole new suit.
Do they have one?
They have, here's the legend.
Do they have one of Karine Jean-Pierre?
Yes, she is. That's why we're bringing in the spades. The clubs. The spades are the White House. The clubs are the talking heads of genocide.
Okay.
So she's in the club family.
So there's a lot of people whose opinions have been expressed over the last 24 hours since the International Criminal Court, ICC, has decided that they are not going to adhere to their ruling that Prime Minister Netanyahu and who was the, I think it was like one other person?
Gallant
are war criminals.
What's his name? You something, I don't know, whatever. Something Gallant.
So a lot of people, including Senator Tom Cotton, one of the biggest neocons in all of politics, among other people who say, I am not going to listen to this. And then, of course, our good friends at the AIPAC Tracker.
Not only that, it's anti-Semitic.
Yes. And if you guys are not following AIPAC Tracker, you definitely want to follow them on Twitter. They will, or X. They are definitely going to inform you as to who is taking all of the Israel lobby money and why they're saying the stupid shit that they're saying.
But here's the thing. We don't need to agree with the arrest warrants being issued for Netanyahu and Gallant.
Yeah.
That's the thing. We don't need to agree. The whole world agrees. And you know what? It is caving in on Netanyahu for sure. And I would also point out for people who are not aware, and I don't know what it happened in terms of like what the technical part of where they are in their trial over there. But apparently he was trying to postpone his trial, his corruption trial that's over there in Israel. And apparently the court said, no, we're going forward. So the walls are closing in on him in a lot of ways.
Well, here's what Karine Jean-Pierre had to say.
And for anyone interested, Karine Jean-Pierre is the 10 of clubs.
Fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israel officials. We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision. The United States has been clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter. You've heard us say this.
Who the hell are you?
Well, again, she's the 10 of clubs. So she's a spokesperson for genocide. That's who she is. I honestly, it's so, as somebody who went to journalism school and used to like love the idea of being press secretary, and I used to fangirl over Dee Dee Myers and Marlon Fitzwater when I was younger. It's like what these people have become. But the people I knew that were press secretaries when actual journalists existed.
Exactly.
So they would actually have to be accountable and answer questions. Like there were actual printing journalists and network journalists. Because these people have fallen very far. This is like an unbelievable, like literally a stenographer for genocide.
This is even worse because she's doing it from a very agitated disposition. She's like, we reject this. How dare you? It's like...
It's so unfortunate because she's so cute.
Yeah, but nor does that have any relevance if you are doing a shitty job.
I know, but the other guys are so grotesque to look at that it's sort of like their outside matches their inside,
you mean like
Kirby and Miller.
Kirby,
right? So like
Kirby
for them,
especially.
So like their outside matches inside, but it's like she actually looks not.
That's why she. Well, that's the thing. This is the thing that the populist right talks about all the time when it comes to DEI. She can sell empire better than people like her.
Okay, but it isn't for me because she's black and female.
I understand that, but
for me, it's just she's just cute.
But that's the
like she could be.
I understand that, but I'm saying that's where the validity of the argument about DEI does make sense.
Okay, here. Let's say that the guy who was the spokesperson, instead of Miller or Kirby, it was somebody like a Neil Patrick Harris. and not necessarily even gay, but just somebody very likable, somebody very cool, whatever.
Yeah, he just happens to be gay.
But no, my point is that I would still look at somebody like that and say that they still look good on the outside.
No, I totally understand what you're saying.
She doesn't look evil.
No, well, looks can be deceiving, you know.
I know.
But ultimately,
I know.
When she got this position, all anybody wanted to talk about was how she was black and gay.
I know. Oh, she's gay?
Yes. So that's the thing. It's I don't care what you are. I care. Are you selling empire?
I always like the last one. I'm always the last person to know everything because I'm not on social media.
Well, now you know. So we'll continue this treachery.
For whatever this prosecutor might imply, there is no evidence, none, between Israel and Hamas. There's just none. In coordination with partners, including Israel, we are discussing certainly those next steps, what that's going to look like. And to your question about sanctions, that's basically kind of just answered it in that last part of what I said. We're in consultation with our partners and also, which include Israel, about our next steps. We fundamentally reject that the ICC has jurisdiction over the situation.
They can reject that all they want, because if Netanyahu or Gallant find themselves somewhere in like the European Union, they're going to get arrested.
They all are, Donald. You don't get to these levels of positions unless you are pedigreed.
That's what I was going to say. It isn't just that she's educated. It isn't just that she's educated. It's she's properly educated, and she has credentials outside of that as well. It's who you know. It's who your parents know. It's a lot of different variables. It isn't just
educated. As we were talking earlier about Harry Sisson. It's the same thing.
I'm educated.
And listen, I think that
overeducated.
I think that there are things when it comes to Matt Gaetz that you can talk about and say, yeah, that does make a lot of sense, and he is right on X, Y, and Z. But never forget, Matt Gaetz, he's a Nepo baby. His father, Don Gaetz, is one of the most powerful political brokers in the Florida Panhandle.
Which is why when people say, oh, he doesn't take PAC money. Okay. And I appreciate that. He doesn't need to.
That's an advantage.
And just so it's a little bit different when it isn't, it's easy to stand on principle when you have infrastructure. And so that's the thing. So while I do appreciate that he doesn't take corporate money and he's not beholden to specific corporate interests, that it's not out of I don't think it's out of altruism.
Well, it's the same thing that we've talked about down here with Mouskowitz. It's the same thing. He's a Nepo baby. He's only there because his father, his late father, was a huge political player down here in South Florida. And he ultimately
bought him a little seat.
Got him into Tallahassee.
Bought him a little seat.
I think he was on the county commission or something like that. And then he got to Congress. And it's a career, baby. Oh, it's a career.
I don't know. He can't. That seat can be.
It could be.
Yeah, it was pretty close. Actually.
Without a psychopath Zionist like Kaufman,
well,
you never know.
I honestly, and I kid you not, people. As much as I dislike Jared Moskowitz, he was preferred in that race.
But that's why they have an election every 2 years.
The Republican that was running against him was like a complete Zio-Nazi of like the nth degree. Like someone, no.
But the sad truth is, in Florida, we have 28 congressional districts, and not a single one of them is a competitive district. Not one. That's gerrymandering for you.
It's on purpose, obviously. Yeah. But in general, as the state does drift more and more, it isn't even that it's getting redder. It's getting no partier.
Yeah.
The Democrats are bleeding and losing people, but I don't necessarily know that Republicans are gaining. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but I do know that most people register as no party affiliation.
I would like Trump to do that just because it'll be hilarious.
That's like the biggest FU I could ever think of. That would be the biggest FU.
We're all gathered here today to talk about these things that I've been trying to tell you for the longest time.
I'd rather Hulk Hogan.
What you gonna do?
I'm just saying, if we're gonna go into the world of like kind of ridiculousness, the problem with Alex Jones, and I did not agree with deplatforming him because I do not believe in deplatforming, but I find him just so incendiary that is just so not the temperament of a press secretary.
Of course.
He's just not the temperament for a press secretary.
Trumpomania.
What was before that about her? Was there something about that you just put up? What was
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, it would be kind of silly. It would be silly. I also wonder if sometimes some of these appointments that are made now are with the knowledge of their sacrificial ones that he knows won't
That's
get
very
confirmed,
possible.
so that somebody else gets in. I know there's strategy in it. It is really very much like playing cards.
It is, but what you also have
You
to
got to
remember,
hold them and fold them.
this is the thing about them all having these conniption fits. The thing about the liberal class, and I'm talking about the real liberal class, like the very
Exactly. Alex
wealthy,
Jones
the
is silly.
pricey,
Willie's right.
Yeah. They still want to pretend like this country's okay.
It is for them.
For them, it is.
Well, so yes, that's
when
their
Trump-
reality.
So when Trump does the things that he does, when he makes certain appointments, when he makes certain statements, when he
See,
does
that
these
makes sense, because
things,
the wife is going to be the
Yeah.
head of education. So that would make
gonna
sense.
be the next press
We would have like,
secretary.
have there ever been like a married couple in the cabinet? That would
Yeah.
be kind of hilarious.
So when
you say, yeah, like, there's been married couples. In
Hey,
the
listen, you
cabinet?
know what? He's making better decisions. I'd rather have Linda McMahon than
Betsy DeVos.
Betsy DeVos is
Yeah.
the head of education.
Yeah, same. At least there's some
and
like
she comes from
potential there.
she comes from very liberal Connecticut. So we'll
Well,
see.
exactly.
We'll
And
see.
I think the ultimate goal is to completely dismantle it.
The truth of the matter is that Linda McMahon is extreme, even at her age. Linda McMahon, I think, is like 75, but she is very politically motivated. Like, she wants this position, and then I have no doubt she
But
wants
why?
to. Well, because she ultimately, I think, wants to run for senator, governor.
So it
of
isn't about
Connecticut.
dismantling and privatizing education and getting her friends all the, all sorts of
Well,
like
if she has
contracts.
any intention of
Because
running,
that's what I think about with people who want cabinet positions.
Sure.
It's like, what's in it for your friends?
well, if she has any intention of running for statewide office again, because she did it once before.
but isn't she one of these, like, she has no experience with education, right? Was she a teacher?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. So this is one of those where there's no real correlation between the person you're appointing and the position, other than it's an executive position. So somebody who can run a business can probably run an executive position, but that's not somebody that's in this for any sort of ideological reason.
See, I was actually very close. I was off by 1 year. Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Guys, for those of you who are new, and we know we've got a
Please subscribe and hit
handful
the
of
like
newbies.
button. Hit the like
Yes.
button if you haven't.
And
If you're
Balsar is right. It would be funny. Well, I would definitely run against Hulk Hogan because he is a really terrible person. He stopped me from forming a union with the wrestlers back in 1987. That is true. He did do that, and that was not.
I know that there's friction there.
There is.
I know there's dedefinitely friction between Jesse and Hulk Hogan.
Does not have 24-inch pythons, despite what he claims. Just saying. He's always well. I love to have him back.
I love Jesse.
Jesse's great.
I
So
love
just
Jesse,
gotta-
and I like Ty.
How do you not? Well, that's why we always have them together, because it's such a great
They're
pair,
just so
father and
good.
son.
And
They
the
really are.
truth is like Ty's voice is the best.
He
He has the best, to me, of the guests we've had. Like, his voice, his radio voice. He's such a good voice. He could do every one of my audiobooks. I'd be really happy.
I have a deep voice, and I am envious of his voice.
But it's not just that it's deep. It's not just that it's deep.
smooth.
Oh, I know. He honestly,
audiobook.
I was just saying he could do any of my audiobooks any day. I actually like the guy who did Jordan's. And because this is why the guy who did Jordan's sounded in demeanor similar to Jordan. Like he had some of the same influence. So I don't know if it's because, I don't know why, but so it was good because I felt like it sounded right. But yeah,
Daryl, I just have to say, if you guys have not seen Mad TV, and for those of you who really can't
watch that.
if you guys can't stand SNL, check out Will Sasso on Mad TV. He was great as Jesse Ventura. He was great as Steven Seagal. He was great as Arnold. Let me tell you, I come here. I'm good to do. I just inhaled some of that smoke you just blew in my direction. I inhaled.
Ridiculous.
We are a small but mighty channel.
Okay, so wait, before you do that, guys, I just looked up. The name of the organization is the Ghassan Abu Sita Children's Fund that gets the money from the war criminals cards. And this is named and started by a trauma physician that is in Gaza. And this has been his thing. So anyway, buy war criminal cards.
Yes, buy war criminal cards.
Buy war criminal cards.
And if you are so inclined, we are a small but mighty channel, but make sure you go over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month.
Did you run our thing?
You
Our
can become
patrons?
a small but mighty supporter of our growing channel, and we are growing.
We are
You know,
growing.
we are getting much more consistent numbers on our views.
I think people are leaving a lot of the lib channels and finding
Good,
their
come on
way
over
over.
here.
They're
Look
like,
at
all right, you clearly these people didn't know what
Think
they were talking
Think
about.
about our chat. You know, we were consistently over 60 this evening.
Yeah.
A lot more we'll find out because Angela and Brian were on the show. I mean, just look, our chat.
You will get
is
no
so-
money from me. You will get no money from me.
Yeah,
you
you've
know
made
what?
that very clear, Pat.
And that's fine, and I appreciate it. But just subscribe. It's free.
Jen Palsar wants to know if Lindsey Graham is the Queen of Hearts.
He's not actually in here. Lindsey Graham's actually
How is
not
he
in here
not?
because it isn't everybody in Congress. Because then you'd have everybody in Congress.
Lindsey Graham is a particular war hawk of the worst.
Well,
kind. A
I'm
chicken.
telling you. Okay, so the categories he would then be under water carriers for genocide. So he'd be in the hearts category, which is interesting. So let's see. And I hadn't seen him in here, but who is in that category? Rishi Sunak. Oh, this is a lot of the foreign people. Macron, von der Leyen,
Von der Leyen is the
Olaf Scholz,
okay.
Trudeau, Georgia Maloney. Yeah, these are all
Yeah.
the foreign people. Janet Yellen is in here. Daniel Shapiro is in here. Chuck Schumer is in here.
Rightfully so.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Of course, rightfully so.
Hillary Clinton.
There she is.
There's Hillary Clinton is the three of hearts.
Oh boy, she would much rather be the Queen.
And
of Hearts.
Howard Core, who is the CEO of APAC. He's in here.
Yeah.
It's a nice bunch.
And so please consider making a contribution if you can, or becoming a patron. That obviously helps. But remember, Google does take money. We prefer you, if you are going to contribute. and you
Hey,
want to
whoever the
make
guy is, if you're not sending us any money, maybe consider buying yourself some war criminals cards and donate to
See, now that's an idea.
the people that really need
But
it.
I really do think that Angela is onto something. I think she really is sharp in how she's going about
Absolutely.
this. She's not one to be messed with. I would definitely take her seriously. And the fact that she talks to RFK on the regular and comes on our show, she definitely understands the concept of coalition building. So kudos to her. And I am going to, well, you know, we'd love to have RFK on the show. That would definitely be.
Oh, I would love to have RFK in the show.
Have a Kennedy on the show. I mean, come on.
I would, but I absolutely would talk to him about Israel.
Yes.
And you know, and he, of all the people though,
He had that conversation with Crystal.
I was going to say of all the people, he's
You know.
the one person that I think would at least be able to have a reasonable conversation.
as you have suggested that he should get his nose out of.
Shmuley's Tukus. You notice you haven't seen Shmuley around.
He's
much.
been kind of on the
He's
out.
laying low.
That was really great when he got destroyed by that guy.
that was funny.
He's like, you ain't MAGA, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, that if they stick to that, then they are for real. Then the movement is for real. One can only hope.
yeah, look, I don't.
No
Oh no,
argument,
he's
Harachnu.
absolutely disgusting. I know.
100%.
I know. I guess what at the time these were made, it was sort of like, Schumer was the head of the Senate. That's why they picked him. Otherwise, I mean, really, you'd have all of them in here because they've all been okay with it. They've other than the handful of people that have not, which is a very small group.
But I think we've gotten to the point where we really are
What's this? What's Colin got
aware.
there? What is that?
Colin, what's this last one?
It's whatever you
looks
must have
whatever
asked
scroll was
for.
over there.
I, for one, am very pleased that there's arrest warrants out for those people. And I actually would hope that eventually there will be arrest warrants out for some of these people here in this country.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Chuck
what
the sh-
What were you asking about?
What's that last one that you have down here?
I'm just sharing the page of the different images you had sent. Of,
is that the one with the 18 senators, or is that the 15 representatives?
Yeah, let's look at that because
Okay.
you're talking about 94, 95.
Yeah,
So I have the statements from the 3 senators with the
Okay.
absence of one senator specifically, but
About Rubio.
no, on that bill you're talking about.
Okay.
HR 9495 is the bill that
This is the bill that will allow.
I think this is it.
This is the bill that will allow the executive branch to basically claim that an organization is a terrorist supporting organization and then have their 501c3 status taken from them. This is basically, no, I want to say this is basically the organizational equivalent of what we did with people by labeling them enemy combatants, with the executive branch's ability to label somebody an enemy combatant. Therefore, you do not have due process. You do not have these rights because we label you as this. This is the organizational equivalent of that. So they're going to name organizations as terrorist supporting. And so now they're going to lose their 501c3 status.
Now, here's the thing that we didn't get a chance to talk about that I thought was very important. So apparently AOC wanted to laud Bernie for at least putting forward the resolution in the Senate in conjunction with the bill that
this is something
that
different.
Addressed how you wanted to have an arms embargo, which of course got voted down. Not a surprise, 79 to 19. Disgusting. And they were all, and not a single Republican voted.
Okay, but you're jumping around, and I think people need to understand the premise of what you're saying. Okay, so because we're just talking about a completely different resolution. Okay.
So while AOC did not vote in favor of House Resolution Bill 9495, which Debbie Wasserman Schultz, of course, did. Let me tell you how bad this bill was, and I'll pull out for a second one thing that should be brought to everyone's attention. This bill is so bad and so anti-free speech that not even Richie Torres or Josh Gottheimer voted yes on it. But Debbie did.
The 9495? The other Torres, it's funny because they had to specify the other Torres, the one from California.
That was all about.
Yeah, it's really egregious. 9495 is very egregious. It's very authoritarian. It's very fascist. It's very scary.
The one thing that I've learned is that whatever corporate media calls people, believe the opposite.
It's a projection usually. It's an admission.
Yeah.
It's an admission.
And there are bad people in the MAGA movement.
There's bad people on both sides.
But in any movement, you think I want anything to do with upper crust liberals? And I don't call them upper class because they have no class. So I call them upper crust. People that
because they're crusty.
Look at a guy, again, Alan Lichtman, the guy that Cenk buried earlier.
That was hilarious.
He is the embodiment of that class. And his worldview is so, like, you offended me.
They're so distorted. Well, they don't like these are the people that don't understand the difference between being uncomfortable and feeling unsafe.
Correct.
And that's one of those people. And they're just very wrapped up in their feelings. And this is when I'm just very clear. I don't give a shit about people's feelings.
Which is even more amazing about Debbie is the fact that not only is she one of the few, but she is actively putting herself in the spotlight again. Like no one is telling her, this is not really a good look for our party. Maybe you shouldn't go on TV so much.
That's when I start to think they're just totally trying to like commit suicide. You know what I mean?
I think they're just trying to rid the entire party of as many populist left people as possible.
They're good and good because they really are going to just sort of like wither away.
Yeah. And you look at somebody like McArdle, she becomes very appealing for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, he's right. He's right. Or yes, but no.
Yes, she does.
She is totally for censorship. She is she is extremely authoritarian and censorship oriented. It's scary, which is truthfully, she's really kind of right. She's very, very right wing. She's very in that camp. Like for all intents and purposes down here, she might as well be a Republican.
Well, if you look at her voting record.
Right. Like it just doesn't, it's just silly. So she's as not left. She is as far right of a Democrat as you could probably be. She's got to be amongst the rightest of the right in the party.
But we know who we know who DWS is. There's no guessing with her. She never has ever voted for healthcare.
AOC Pelosi.
This is a bigger problem because Alex has been going out there pretending like she actually supports the cause, but then she goes and votes for something like this, which is House Resolution 1449, one that the Zionist ADL, Anti-Defamation League, Mr. Greenblatt.
He's horrifying.
Is currently he looks like a Nazi. Is currently celebrating.
Stephen Miller.
Yeah. Oh, him. Well, the two piece in a pod.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got one in the Democratic Party, Mr. Greenblatt. You have one of the Republican
Party.
They
both
Mr.
look
Miller.
creepy.
They both look like Zion Nazis. Zion Nazis.
They are Zion Nazis. That's what I call them, Zion Nazis.
She didn't release one because she voted for it in opposition to Ilhan, Corey, Rashida, and the rest of the Free Palestine movement.
What'd you get paid for that? What'd they offer you?
What exactly?
What did they offer you for that, Alex?
Does she intend to get out of this? I think is the question.
Well, something was offered to her. Something was offered to her. AOC Pelosi is about career enrichment. AOC Pelosi is about climbing that ladder. That's it. She does not care about what, like, she is gone.
But the thing that I find harder to understand when it comes to her is she doesn't present well.
No,
Like,
she presents like she's
she's
table.
like she's an attractive woman, but when she speaks, there is no like commanding. Like we have been, even though you guys may not agree, and that's okay. We have been in the presence of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar multiple times, and let me tell you something. She may be a small lady, but my God, does she have a commanding presence, and she can speak. And she is the fourth most effective representative on the Hill. And she did like my question when I asked her, why is that? She's like, because I actually read bills and I do my job.
She actually reads the legislation that crosses her desk.
Don't know who she was necessarily throwing under the bus in that moment.
There's probably a lot of people.
Oh,
most
absolutely.
of them. The truth is, you could any of them. Most of them don't read the shit.
Yeah. And so my question is, how high does she think her ceiling is? Like,
I don't know, because I honestly don't see her winning a statewide race at this point. I think she has lost a lot of favor with people on the left, and I don't think she's going to be liked enough by the people that are the traditional centrist people based on how she came up.
I also don't understand how nobody has even gotten in her ear about the way about her diction and her pronunciation. She comes off as somebody who is does not belong there. Like she sounds like a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to.
But I think that also is intentional. I think they used her to sort of think they're going to lure in the young people somehow. Like she has that capability, just like you were that guy, Ben Sisson or whatever his name was. Harry Sisson.
In fact, all statistical data implies that was a complete failure. That it didn't work. In fact, 8 men aged 18 to 29 broke for Trump.
No, I understand it's not working, but that's again, no one's ever going to accuse the Democrats of being smart or having good strategy.
Well, it just goes to.
But I just think it's more intentional than people think. I think it's more nefarious than incompetence. At the level that we're talking about, at the local level, and when we're talking about people that are just still with the party, for the most part, I think it's incompetence. But at the top levels, I think it's intentional and nefarious. And I don't know, but she was offered something for that vote. Now she doesn't take AIPAC money, but that doesn't mean that she's not threatened by them paying someone else to have her seat. You know, so I don't know, but she was offered something for that vote. And I honestly, the end of her will be when she ostracizes herself from people like Ilhan and Corey and all them more and more. Although Corey's not going to be there, but people that are in that camp.
Is Base Chad wrong? It's basically been their mission.
No, absolutely. But it isn't, unfortunately, it isn't just Israel. It's the whole Zionist project.
But this didn't take off like this until recently. It hasn't always been this emphatic.
No, well, this is what happens as empire is crumbling, as the concept of Zionism is crumbling. They get more and more harsh, more and more severe. This is what you see.
I agree with that.
And they're on their way out. And, you know, I think that for the most part, everybody sees it but them. But they're really in their bubble. It'll be a very rude awakening. I want the entire world to ban Israelis from being able to go there. I think that we should not allow them to travel to other countries. I think that soccer thing needs to shut that shit down. I don't think they should be allowed to compete at international things. They do not know how to conduct themselves in other places.
No.
They don't know how to conduct themselves anywhere, but let that be their own problem. They don't, honestly, I don't want them coming here. I don't want them going there. I don't want them anywhere. And
I will not eat them in a house.
I do not want them anywhere.
I will not eat them in a.
And I believe that in this country that right now is our bigger immigration problem, is that we are currently allowing a mass influx of genocidal people into this country. And then we're worrying about the people at the southern border. They're not scary to me. Genocidal people coming from Israel are infinitely more concerning to me that are migrating here than poor people trying to escape for a better life.
Well, we'll disagree on that one. I think they're both equally.
Well, I want to give, except for I want to give one refuge and amnesty, and one I want to go down in a war criminal blaze of glory.
Well, one can only hope that we are coming to some form of an enlightened period. I think a lot of people are. I mean, look, like I said, our chat is very diverse in a lot of ways in terms of where people would fall on the
I like that
political
because
spectrum.
it means that we're reasonable.
I think so. I think so. I think, it would be nice if we had, 500 people watching, but ultimately this isn't our career. We're not doing this every day. We are doing it Mondays and Thursdays, and I am doing a Sunday night show solo.
Exactly. The Zios are scary. Those people are violent.
They are.
They are violent, and they need to not be allowed to travel to other countries. We need to stop letting them have visas. Now, I know, our country will never do that. But I am hopeful that some of the other countries, especially the ones that participate in those kinds of the sports and are hosting things, are getting to the point where a lot of them are just not going to open up they're not going to let their teams come and play anymore. And they're going to try to reduce it because these people cannot be amongst us.
I would also say that one of the biggest differences between the Zionists and somebody like, I can't even remember his name, but the guy who murdered Laken Riley, and I'm using that one as an example, again, illegal immigrant from Venezuela.
But what are the statistics about illegal? First of all, I hate the term illegal, undocumented people.
Whatever you want to call it. My point is this, is that he didn't think for a second that he was getting away with anything once the police got to him. The difference is with Zionists is that they really do believe that they could shoot somebody dead on Fifth Avenue and nothing will happen.
Well, they now nothing like that has happened that I'm aware of, but they have been acting with complete impunity at all of these protests. All of the violence that has happened at the student encampments, at the marches, is consistently. It is started by Zio-Nazis and facilitated by law enforcement every single time. Every single time. They instigate. And as someone who grew up amongst a lot of people of the Israeli persuasion, they're instigators. They're entitled and they're instigators. And so, when you're going to go around and instigate, every time that they get the find out portion, it pleases me. So whoever ended up in the river in Amsterdam, good for you. Whenever you get to the find out portion, because they will, them entitled selves, eventually you'll try that shit in the wrong place.
And this is why you guys need to recognize why the one true left movement that has any real juice and actually has value to the betterment of our society is the Free Palestine movement. You know why? Because they're not going to stop. They're in it for the long haul. They are not going to let up on the Zionists. And that is why they are getting more and more desperate, and why now the International Criminal Court recognizes the leader of Israel as a war criminal.
He's a war criminal.
He now cannot leave his country. He is confined to Israel.
Well, I think he's gonna ultimately end up here.
I think he's gonna end up here.
This is the only place
I'm saying that. So he's gonna end up in New York
City.
There's
nowhere else he can end up. There's nowhere else he can go. I mean, he could probably end up in a place like, Argentina or something. Yeah. I think they're on our team too.
Listen, the Orthodox Jews are Free Palestine. There is, but the difference is, if you guys came down here, to Boca Raton, Parkland, Miami Beach,
different sects are different. There's definitely very Orthodox sects that are anti-Zionist and have always been anti-Zionist.
Of course. The best video that I think we've seen and shown on our show over the past year since last October was that blonde woman in New York City going up to the Hasidic and saying, "You're not a Jew. Right. You're not a Jew." And she's like,
I mean, it's
crystallized.
I think more people are realizing the distinction, but we need to keep harping on the distinction between Zionism and Judaism. But I mean, look, where we are, and when we're talking about Western Ashkenazi Orthodox Jews, like in this country, like for the most part, and I'm not talking ones raised in those small enclaves in Brooklyn, okay, that are in their whole own world, but like amongst us, the secular Jews, they're Zionists here.
Yes.
They do tend to be Zionists here. And it's how we were raised. And I understand that. That's why I expect it from them. And I'm not, like, again, when I'm talking about people coming here, I'm specifically talking about Israelis.
And you said that people have come around. Some have come around.
Some have come around. The problem with the Israelis that scares me is that when you look at the polls that have been conducted amongst Israelis in Israel,
Oh, they're bloodthirsty psychopaths.
Yeah, I mean, the majority of them are very they might not be supportive of Netanyahu because they want their hostages back and they have all these other internal reasons and his corruption and whatever. But for the most part, the majority of Israelis are full on in support of what's going on and do not support the idea of a Palestinian state. So with that in mind, then you'd have to say that the majority of them are okay with genocide. And then to me, ergo, I don't want them coming here. I don't mind us questioning people coming into this country with certain things. If we're going to have borders, I think one of the things that we should keep people out from are genociders.
Well, I would definitely agree on that.
And I'm not a big border person. I am as live and let live as you could possibly be. But I think if we can protect ourselves from genocidal people, that would be a smart thing to do. That's just me.
Yeah. Well, and Liberty Lion, and again, we hope you'll be listen, we like having new voices. I think that's important. And it's important to hear where people are coming from and their disposition. I am definitely a lot more conservative on immigration than Jen is. But my reasoning behind my conservatism on
has to do with workers.
Has to do with workers. That's my reason.
Here's the thing. I do not really have a very concrete position on pathway to citizenship. Like, I'm very flexible on what that looks like and how that works in terms of economics. I am like, I don't understand enough about it. My issue is, and has always been, how we treat people that come here, and that we consider people coming here in and of itself a crime worth treating people. Well, first of all, I don't believe in how we treat any people charged with crimes in this country. So there's that. But I have a problem with, are the New York Hasidim considered Orthodox? Okay, so Orthodox is a very, what was I? See, you do that and then it cuts me off and then I lose my train of thought.
All that weed, baby.
No, but don't interrupt.
I'm
That's part of the
sorry.
problem. No, it's like you get bored and you start scrolling.
I didn't
but
get
like I was in the middle of like a whole thought. Now I forget. But anyway, the people that are coming in like at the border, right? Like why must we treat people so poorly? I know. And let me tell you something. As somebody who is not a Mel Brooks, because I'm not, my dad, that's one of his all-time favorite movies in the world is Blazing Saddles. So I am very familiar. So to me, it's how we treat people at the border. That is completely unacceptable. It is not okay to treat human beings the way we're treating them. Now, whether or not we make them citizens, whether or not whatever that we can discuss.
They're
that.
just they're political pawns.
And that is my problem. I am not okay with how we treat people. And what was that other question that you wanted me to answer? What was that?
Where the Hasidim.
About Orthodox Jews. Okay, so Orthodox is a pretty broad category, right? Orthodox is, you've got Reform, you've got Conservative, and you've got Orthodox. But Orthodox within that has a lot of different things. So some things here, like what we call modern Orthodox down here in South Florida, is not necessarily the same thing as what you're thinking about in like the towns in Brooklyn, the real Hasidic.
Totally different
Jews.
worlds.
But we do have here, and this is something that's interesting. So for example, in South Florida, Chabad is very popular even amongst modern Orthodox because it's so much cheaper than joining a synagogue. And I hate to say it, but my people are nothing if not like economically wise. So, you know, a lot of the modern Orthodox people, and even people that aren't really even Orthodox at all, go to Chabad here. And that's a South Florida thing. I cannot speak as to how that works in other places because it is infinitely cheaper to have your kid go through Chabad to have a bar mitzvah than to join a synagogue it's so much cheaper.
All I can say is that my personal experience between the three major Western religions is that if you guys have never experienced what it's like to go to a mosque,
I highly recommend. It's very peaceful, but I wasn't finished in explaining the Hasidic thing. No, but I'm just saying, so there are Hasidic sects, like the group in what is their name? I always forget their name. They have a name. They're a certain name. The ones that are always protesting against Zionism and sticking up for Palestinians. They're a very specific sect.
Torah Jews, maybe?
No. But there are many Hasidic sects that are anti-Zionist because it actually is a violation of the Torah.
Yeah.
Zionism is actually a violation of Jewish law. The forcing of a geopolitical state in a place before the return of, yes, the Natural Carte. Yeah, that's them. But there's other groups as well. And there's groups in Israel that actually oppose the geopolitical state. And I try not to say Goyim. I say Gentile.
That sounds much more gentle.
Well, first of all, Gentile is the word the Bible uses. So I feel like it's at least, acceptable. But so, no, I'm just saying that there's so many different Hasidic sects, Lubavitch, all of that. But Chabad is a variety of various different Orthodoxes, depending on where you live. I don't know if that explains it well, but
It explained it well enough for me to just say, I hate you all. I thank no one but myself.
no, I'm just saying that the majority of Orthodox Jews that we will encounter down here will be Zionists.
Just remember, Israel is a construct. It is not real.
No.
Palestine is what is real. And
I'm telling you, we need to bring
this
back
is
the
why
idea
they
of
have
Greater
to.
Syria.
This-
I reached out to Rania. I'm hoping she responds. I like the idea of Greater Syria.
On Monday, we
Anyway.
will actually have our special guest, Nancy Pelosi. You'll get it when you see it. We are also going to be setting up interviews with our friend James Lee from Crystal and Sagar's Breaking Points. We are also going to be speaking with Butch Ware again.
I love him.
And
I'm sweet on him.
see if you can potentially pair him up. Margaret Kimberly is going to be coming back on the show. We're gonna have a lot of people. We're gonna figure out, because my last show is going to be Wednesday. Wait, no. Yes, my last show with Jen is actually on Monday.
Wednesday, we don't do a show on Wednesday.
Well, we'll do something because of Thanksgiving, is what I'm saying. I think that would make sense, right?
Well, when are you leaving?
I leave.
Oh, so you're going to do it from Jersey?
So I leave a week from Tuesday.
You're going
but
to do it from up there?
Yeah, my last show in the studio is
Well, you won't be in the studio.
on Monday.
How are you gonna live? Like, I can't even fathom how you're gonna live.
I don't know. It'll be. I'll
It's like an
figure it out.
experiment. I feel like on the one hand, I'm so glad you're leaving the nest.
I'm
Like
excited to
Jason
have
and I,
fun.
Jason and I feel very pleased that you're finally leaving the nest.
No, I'm sure you are. You don't have to see me asking for food.
Coming in
ever
and raiding
again.
the refrigerator.
I don't raid.
You raid.
I always ask.
You only because I've told you to so many times.
Yes, that's true.
After raiding.
Yes. Well, that's when you say that you have these extra meals and you're like, okay, well, we don't want these.
Well,
then
and
they're-
so you'll be happy to know there are going to be some extra meals because Jason and Graham are leaving first thing in the morning and they're going to be gone for a couple of days. So
oh,
there
Lisa.
will be some extra
And
meals.
then finally, the one time of the year where things start to get a little bit more reasonable in terms of the weather. By the way,
it's so nice
by
out
Florida
right now.
weather, this is actually fairly chilly this evening.
It's
in the
so
60s.
nice out. It's so nice out. It's
Yeah.
so sadly hot tub weather, and I no longer have a hot tub. So
Yeah.
it's unfortunate.
That sounds better than fried turkey. I'll say that.
We have smoked turkey because I am married to a smoker. Yes, he is Kramer. He is Kramer, like
Hey,
totally. He is that
sure.
at my house. My
Thank you,
husband
Kat.
does smoke the turkey, and it is I very much like the smoked turkey, and I don't eat meat, but I always taste a piece at Thanksgiving because he puts in so much effort into the food. He's very into that.
And the only meat that I generally make an exception for is
Free at my house.
is turkey on Thanksgiving and different occasions. But overall, I prefer to be pescatarian. Wild caught fish. Fishing is a lot of fun. I don't generally have the time to do it, but you have to have patience to fish and you have to have time to fish. And generally don't have either.
I actually like fishing, but I don't like
Yeah.
ocean fishing. I like
Lake-
Jason and I would do trout fishing.
trout fishing. is good.
It's very river runs through it, but I'm a mountain person, so I love that. Like that's very pleasing when you talk about patience. Like when we met in college, we would go up, and there was a summer where we literally caught dinner every night. We would
That's
go
great.
up Boulder Canyon and we would sit there. Now I didn't, Jason caught. I would basically sit on the rock and like meditate and be all into it and stuff, but I'd throw my rod in, and if anything came on it, he had to deal with it anyway. But and I also don't bait my own hook because that's just gross.
I am going to the reddest part of Florida, Josie. That's where I'm going. I'm going to the Panhandle.
He's going up to the
I'm going
Panhandle.
to Floribama. Going to Floribama.
Floribama.
but I'm looking forward to it.
I'm envious. I'd love to get out of here too. Well, my son graduates. This is his last year, so I have the freedom from Florida is on my horizon.
Hold that thought for next show, Base Chad. We'll talk about that on Monday.
Oh yeah, we've discussed it before, but I'm happy to. Like, if you're interested, like I wouldn't even know which episode particularly directed to, but we've done many episodes on this issue of deconstructing Zionism, and we've talked about this.
We really, really need a single-payer healthcare system. Can't emphasize that enough.
Who gets free medical? Israelis? Yeah, but then exactly. I mean, but when they come here, let's be very clear.
Very, very, very close, Ray. Very close.
The Israelis that come here are affluent, white, affluent Israelis. So these are people that are coming here that, yes, they're not getting healthcare, but these are people with money. They have money. So they can afford their private insurance. These are wealthy people that are coming here. So even though they're giving up their healthcare there, they get healthcare here because these are affluent people.
Well, let's not get into any type of stereotypes now, because I don't need to stick my foot in my mouth before we close for the evening.
I don't even care about it anymore because I don't care about people's feelings anymore.
Yeah,
I used to care about people's feelings. Now it's like, fuck your feelings. I cared about people's feelings when there wasn't a genocide.
You sound
now
really,
I don't care about
You sound really
feelings.
great with that. Totally fuck your feelings. That's
Fuck
a
your
great idea.
feelings.
That's
I don't care about people's feelings.
Jen is making America great again.
Again.
That's what
I just don't. This is not about people's in your personal life with your personal people. Everybody should care about your feelings.
Your feelings are important, but
when we're talking about policy and we're talking, I just don't care about people's feelings. I don't care if it bothers you. I don't care if you're uncomfortable. I don't care. I actually don't even care if people feel unsafe because I don't care about your feelings. I don't give a shit. Now, I care that you are like, I don't want people to actually be unsafe. That I care about. I care about whether or not people are unsafe. But as far as if they feel unsafe, yeah, I don't give a shit. I just don't care.
That is a very, very flattering comment. I appreciate it. Totally appreciate it. You're really sweet. And Daryl, I really appreciate you complimenting my voice.
What about your arms? What about his arms?
This is my real voice.
But what's she saying about your arms? Oh, how you're.
No, it's really incredible.
Is that what she's commenting on your arms?
I think this is a
the little hands.
No,
Donnie little hands.
No, I got really great hands, big hands, tremendous hands. They're the best hands. Believe me when I tell you.
With those hands, you wouldn't even be able to touch the cervix with a pelvic exam.
I totally don't know what that means, but anyway, we are making America great again.
Again.
And it's only January 20th where we get to have a lot of fun. But in the meantime, hope you all behave yourselves. And
Peter's arms.
Really,
I don't know what's wrong with his arms.
Really great chat today.
He's got okay arms. I mean, they're nothing like, it's not like major cut or anything. There's nothing.
I'm gonna have to work a lot harder on those bad boys.
They're lean. Like he's got nice arms. Like he doesn't have not good arms, but
I've got to work really hard on
he doesn't have not good arms, but he doesn't I don't think that you would notice his arms.
Oh, look, even the boys like my body. Isn't that great? That's really great.
I mean, he looks decent. Like he looks fit. He looks healthy. But I mean, I don't think it's anything that you would notice walking down the street. Like he doesn't look like Butch Ware.
Have you listen?
That is who I would notice when I was walking down.
I would call myself Butch because I'm a Butch guy. But I don't like Butch women. Butch women, not my thing.
No, Butch Ware, not Butch women.
No, I don't. Whatever they're Butch about, I don't really want to. I don't care about that. I just want to be. I think this is a really great opportunity to thank our crowd. We have great people here. Really great people.
I mean, you're very proportionate. Peter's very proportionate.
They're really great.
Listen,
I'm talking right now. I don't need to hear you. I can't
yeah.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Oh, and I am telling you right now.
But he's tall.
If there's going to be,
Bruce Lee was small.
Yes.
Butch Ware is that and tall, which is, I hate to say it, it's appealing.
So I do think, and I applaud it as well. I recommend everybody. Again,
I went back to yoga today for the first time since COVID.
It was probably great, right?
It took me a while to find a studio that does what I like. Because there's no shortage of, if you want to do hot yoga, you want to do a vinyasa flow, there's a yoga studio in every corner. But if you do yin yoga, like me, if you like yin, it's so difficult. I finally found a studio.
Yeah.
I highly recommend yin. But so I tried it today for the first time, and it was really good. So I will go back there.
For the people that really want a single payer healthcare system as much as we do, I
think it should pay for yoga.
That would be, listen, I would say probably more than any other reason that we desperately need a single payer healthcare system right now. There is such a mental health crisis in this country that people do not properly deal with their mental health problems. Instead, because Big Pharma owns our healthcare system, people pop pills all day long.
See, and yin yoga would be infinitely better for people's mental health.
I would
than pharmaceuticals. And I do both. Like, I'm a fan of all of it. You know, I'm one of those, you throw enough shit against the wall, something's going to stick. I do a combination of Prozac and cannabis. I find the combination works really well together.
And so despite what other content creators in South Florida like Destiny have to say, being fit, being healthy, it's very good for your mental health.
For sure.
So all these things make a difference. And maybe this is very libertarian of us to say, but it starts at home. You can make a decision. My late grandfather, who taught me as much about life as anybody ever did, he always said it starts right when you get up. Make your bed.
I do every single day.
Little things.
Every single day. I do every single day. On Sundays, sometimes I do what's called a soft make. It's a soft make.
That's Sunday though.
That's on Sunday. Sunday do a soft make.
Sunday is supposed to be the day of rest.
That's why I do a soft make where it gets pulled up, but instead of folding the cover in like all the way up, I only fold it in half. Like it's just a slightly.
You have another secret admirer. Well, not so secret because it's out there. There you go. But you're not a woke lefty. You're not a.
No, I'm anti-woke.
Yeah. Well,
I'm pretty anti-woke.
AOC took the pronouns.
AOC Pelosi.
She took the pronouns out of her bio.
That's something Butch Ware did come up with. Was AOC Pelosi.
It's a great nickname. Yeah, that's gonna be a great conversation. Now that he's coming back, and
it's hard for me to talk to him. It's almost like the Cornel West thing, but it's just a little bit different.
Well, we'll see if we want to pair him with another person.
Like I so have this thing for like black man revolutionaries. I can't even contain myself. I just do. There is something that is extremely appealing to me about that.
On that note, John Nada, Kat Negrita, Liberty Lion, Base Chad, Henry Kajawa, Dylan Hanneman, Harachanu, Palsar, Adam Goodman, Donald James, Me Want Tacos.
I always want tacos.
Rage, and now everybody wants tacos.
Everybody wants tacos. Tacos make everything better. Everything's better with tacos.
Daryl Riley.
Tacos is almost like puppies. Makes everything better. Or bacon. Bacon makes everything better.
That's probably the number one meat product that people would have the hardest time giving up.
It's so hard for me.
Josie Justice. Yeah, that bacon's a big one. That's. I think they did I remember reading a survey once that said
I freaking do. I love bacon.
What would be the number one meat product you could never give up, and the number one by a landslide?
I've like almost never do we buy it. The only time I buy it is Thanksgiving time because it's in some of the recipes that I do. I almost never buy it, but I do like it.
Meat wad. What a name, meat wad.
Well, it's better than meatloaf.
That's still Meatloaf. Meatloaf had some really good songs by
because they were written by Jim Steinman.
Oh, that's why?
Yeah. The songs that you like, that sound, that Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of a Heart, Holding Out for a Hero.
Mid-80s, exactly.
Yeah, all of those songs.
And I'll do anything for love.
Yeah, no, that's not how it sounds. Don't say.
I can't sing.
No,
that's one thing I can't. I can't even sing like Bruce.
Those songs that you love that are Meatloaf songs that you love are Jim Steinman songs.
Schultze, Jimmy Zimzam.
I would do music reactions. I wouldn't do movie reactions. I would do music reactions. The problem is there's not that much music. I'm trying to think of what genre like that I'd be interested in hearing. Well, the problem is it would have to be a genre that I'm interested in hearing that I don't know anything about. But you can't have a reaction to something that you know. You have to react to music that you don't know. I've been watching this young Brit. He's adorable. And Molly Boy. His name's Molly Boy TV. And I've been watching him.
Sable
and he's
Minor.
Young, and he just discovered Eric Clapton. And the look on his face, like it pleases me so much. And then when he finds out that they're also British, he gets so excited. It's just, yeah, I love watching young people. It doesn't have to be young people, but usually it's young people that haven't been introduced to a certain kind of music.
Pi Squared is new. Yes, we'll see what they do. Being honest, there's something about Vivek.
He doesn't like Vivek.
I can't put my finger on it, but there's something about him.
I told you he's Indian Ben Shapiro.
And I told you the thing about Vivek, he went to the same school as Buttigieg. They graduated the same time.
Because he comes off with that same sort of elitist. Just because he's not white, he still comes off like that.
No, you guys are all great. It's been
my thing about Elon. My problem with Elon,
the 7 sacraments of health
position.
Is that one of the 7 sacraments of health?
Self-interest, but yes. One of my problems with Elon would be with any oligarch that buys a position. Okay. I don't like that concept. I think it's very scary. I also think it's scary that he owns
the rapid response for show,
that
Bob
he owns,
Freeman.
That he owns the platform that he owns and controls as much as he does. And I do find that scary. But it isn't, and he is just so douchey. God, he's so
Teddy
douchey.
Cool.
Graham and I saw the ugliest Cybertruck, if that's not even a double.
That's
redundant.
I cannot
so we saw, not only did we see a Cybertruck, they're so ugly. And I love that they keep breaking down and they're totally suck ass. But we saw one, Graham and I, and it must have been wrapped because I'm pretty sure they only come in the color they come in. But we saw one that was metallic pink. It was
Thanks for checking in.
AOC Pelosi.
It's true. Peace
that's Lila.
I don't know who would have taken down your comment, but we don't do that here.
No, we haven't taken down anything.
No. But it's possible you may have written a comment.
I mean, I don't think we have like mods. We don't have anybody that would. We don't have
Chorizo Centauri. Thank you. Now,
what was their comment? I don't know.
But it's true. Now we know what chorizo is, but it's Chorizo Centauri. It looks like a planet. That's what that looks like. Some type of a red giant of some kind.
Isn't that? Wouldn't
star.
That be Mars or is it the sun?
I'm not sure.
It's hard to look like Mars.
It's possible that Centauri is a planet.
I don't understand. Well, the truth is nowadays, when you look at a picture, I don't know what's filtered, what's real, what's not. So I don't know what that is. Is it supposed to be Mars? It looks like a red planet.
That's bacon.
Oh, is that bacon? Okay. Yeah. Don't threaten me with a
You're damn right.
Yeah. And he treats his employees crappy. And I don't like the idea of somebody buying positions. I just don't. I don't like the idea.
You could totally tell that Elon is at least on the Asperger spectrum, if not outright. You could tell
that doesn't bother me.
No,
that doesn't bother me. I think I would bet a lot of the people in that position are. I think a lot of those savant people are like that.
Thank you again, Willie. I will say I'm a woke leftist against cancel culture.
That's pretty good. Well, you're an actual, but you see, you're actually woke.
Correct.
You were woke before the word was woke. That there's a difference. I feel like that word has been co-opted, but it's like you were woke just by your existence before that was even a thing. So I don't think of you as like, when I think of woke, I don't, yeah. Did I explain that okay? Touche.
We love you guys. We appreciate you all. Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do, and we'll see you Monday. Oh, excuse me. See you Sunday night.
He has something to pontificate about.
Oh.